The African bourgeoisie is the most corrupt bourgeoisie in the world. In Africa, they seek luxury in the midst of mass suffering. There are more Mercedes in Africa than in any other continent in the world. In America, as soon as they arrive at a position based on this blood of the people, they snatch that position and run away from the people. But you must not think that they represent the people. They only represent their opportunistic self, using the people every step of the way. So you must not be confused. It must be clear then, for the 60s, the class struggle in the African Revolution must be more ruthless and uncompromising than in any other revolution. Here then the masses must come without pity and without mercy to trample upon these reactionary pigs who, after the people have gained struggle through their blood, come to hand back the gains on a silver platter to the very enemy the people fought. This will come as a natural consequence. The people themselves are everywhere screaming that it's time for them to deal with these reactionary pigs. Even in America, they say, our leaders must be held accountable. They're only saying here that these people must be accountable to those who made it possible for them to get there. Thus, not only is the revolution inevitable, but it is clarifying itself and it is qualifying itself. For the African masses everywhere, the clairpoised position now for class struggle has become inevitable and irreversible. The petty bourgeoisie everywhere will be running for cover, but the masses will spare them not.
Welcome to another episode of the Nick and CJ Show. I'm one of your hosts. I'm CJ. What's up, Nick?
What's up, my friends, my family? We are back for another fantastic week at Revolutionary Blackout, and that's a great way to start this week out with our brother, our revolutionary Kwame Ture. These are the people that we look up to. We're not built the same as the NATO left. The NATO left, their heroes are Bernie Sanders. They listen to Ryan Grimm. Those are their heroes. David Sirota is their heroes. We look to Kwame Ture, and we also look at our guests that we're going to bring on. These are the people that we listen to, and the guest that we have today is a great friend that we love. I love following the work of Black Agenda Report. Welcome back to the show, my friend Margaret Kimberley. Welcome back.
Hello, nice to be here.
Welcome.
Yeah, so Margaret Kimberley is the editor at Black Agenda Report, author, activist, reporter. Great to have you on. You also have a book. You have a book
Yes,
well.
I do. You know, the holiday season's coming up, and if you decide to spend money, what better thing to do than buy a book? A great book, Prejudential, Black America and the Presidents, which was published a couple of years ago, but it will never go out of style. I go from George Washington through Donald Trump, analyzing the history of Black people with the presidency. It's a long, sad story, and even the ones we were told were quote unquote good for Black people weren't. But so buy the book from directly from the publisher, Steerforth Press, steerforth.com, Barnes & Noble, Amazon, Audible. I am the narrator. There's also an ebook, so there's no reason not to have it. Thank you.
Yeah, make sure you guys check it out. If you check out that book and the work of Black Agenda Report, you will not be disappointed. Especially in that book in general, where you point out the evils of the politicians. I saw like it still pisses me off to this day whenever I see Black people like apologizing for Barack Obama. I saw like Malik like called out Obama, and I don't know, like I don't think he's calling out Obama for like a left reason, but I see like all these Black people run to Obama's defense. And there's nothing that makes me sadder than that. And through the work of the Black, if you want to speak on that, you can. But through the work of the Black Agenda Report, you guys expose Barack Obama and a lot of these other politicians. Morgan, you have anything to add? And I want to get CJ in here because CJ, I'll let you do intros before we get started.
Yeah, I just want to say, blackagendareport.com, we were the first to tell the truth about Barack Obama, that he was an imperialist, neoliberal, and that's why they chose him to be the president. They needed a new face. George W. Bush was unpopular, and what better new face to have than a brown one?
Exactly.
And he's still doing the business of imperialism and capitalism and neoliberalism and austerity. He's the one who foisted Joe Biden upon us. They didn't want Bernie. They got everybody to drop out. They popped propped up Joe Biden, prayed he wouldn't have too many crazy outbursts, and they succeeded, and he's the president. So, and we took a lot of heat for taking that position.
I can only
But
imagine.
But that's okay. We'll just, we lived with it, we survived it, and we are still telling the truth about Obama and everybody else.
Obama definitely was the best gift ever to the establishment. Think about it. There was this massive anti-war movement that was developing. That's why I still cover foreign affairs the way I do to this day. Like the George W. Bush Jr. administration. I was in middle school, my freshman year of high school when he got out. Am I getting time right? Around that time. Hey, not exactly. Around that time. I was around middle school, preteen, teenager, George W. Bush Jr. And that radicalized me. Giant anti-war movement. Barack Obama take over. He kills the anti-war movement. The same way that Joe Biden came in, he killed the immigration justice movement. Remember everyone saying abolish ICE? Remember the Me Too movement got killed by Biden as well? So it's like the Democratic Party is where movement goes to die. And Barack Obama, that was his job, and that what he meant to do. But CJ, I won't pass it to you. Any announcements anything you want to add to this as well?
This the usual. We do have a special guest, so let's make sure we get those likes up. Let's make sure we contribute in the conversation, because I want to have this conversation with Margaret interactive with our community, not necessarily answering questions, but I just want to put the comments up as based on what she's saying, so our community can feel like they're also participating in the conversation, because you are one of our most requested guests, and I think you've been on the channel more than anybody else. So yes, so you've been on the guests that we've asked to have on here the most, and so it was quite funny when people labeled us Jimmy Dore adjacent, because we're like, why aren't we called Margaret Kimberley adjacent? Go ahead.
I'm way closer aligned to Black Agenda. Like I and we're gonna talk about hate here soon. Like I read a ton of Black Agenda report, and they talk because there's not a lot of left media that get that issue correctly. So if you're gonna label anyone adjacent to anyone, that's like you're closer to anyone, right? But I want to say this tweet. I saw this because we were just talking about Obama. I want you to speak. I want you to speak on this. I just saw this. You see, this is Barack Obama wishing Joe Biden happy birthday, and I saw your tweet where you said if it wasn't for Obama, I never would have heard of the Corn Pop story. Do you want to speak on that? On any?
Well, it goes back to what I just said. Obama is the one who put Biden in office. They had the oligarchy of the Democratic Party, and yes, we have an oligarchy. I don't even want to have that debate with anybody. It's pretty clear. They did not want Bernie Sanders. They didn't even want Elizabeth Warren. These like these reformers who just want to nibble around the edges. They are still unacceptable to them. But they couldn't decide on anyone. Nobody had really caught fire. But they just, one by one, all of a sudden, they all dropped out. And the black misleaders, as Kwame Ture was just discussing, James Clyburn, the congressman, we're told he's some kind of kingmaker. What a joke. He's one of the leaders of the Democratic Party. So the oligarchs chose Biden, so he endorsed Biden. And black people were told, that's it, that's all. And everybody get in line behind Biden, despite the many problematic things about him. His very overt racism, talking about the country being a racial jungle. He was the point person against school busing when he was a senator. He was the point person against busing to achieve school desegregation. He was the one who led the fight for the crime bill of the 90s, Clinton's crime bill, which put so many black people in prison. And which is why Obama chose him, just to make it clear, I'm not really a liberal. I'm going to pick one of the more conservative Democrats to be the vice president. And he's this man who's not very bright, who's not well. I'm sorry, it's very obvious to me I mentioned the Corn Pop story. Why would you tell that story?
People have no idea how racist that story is. Like, if you actually break down and analyze it, it's such a horrific story. It's such a great point that you make, because if it wasn't for Obama, Biden would not be where he's at right now. No. Like, Biden was considered an electoral joke before Barack Obama. He created Biden as we know him. One thing I want to ask you about as well. I want to ask you about Haiti. I was on RT because RT is the only place that will invite radicals on to tell the truth about Haiti. We saw Biden's recent policies where he support the invasion of Haiti, but not only just Biden, AMLO. You got a lot of people in the global South and the Western Hemisphere in general, and not just neoliberals who are bad on this issue. Now, I actually don't know a lot about this particular topic, the tension and the racism within the Dominican Republic. And you guys wrote this article, and I actually would love to ask you about it because I would love to learn more about it myself. Once again, Black Agenda Report is where I get a lot of my information debunking the West narrative and in South America and Haiti in particular. I always go to them. So, do you want to chime in on the story? Because this is from the Black Agenda Report, the Dominican Republic. The Republic. I don't know why I struggle with that. Their president, Anti-Haitianism. Do you want to take that on?
Well, people sometimes just say the DR. Here in New York, everybody knows what that means because there's so many Dominicans in the city. So for your viewers who may not know, Haiti shares an island with the Dominican Republic, the island of Hispaniola. And about 2/3 of the island are the Dominican Republic on the east end, and Haiti's about 1/3 of it on the west end of the island. The Dominican Republic, despite being a global South developing country, has a stronger economy than Haiti does. And so what happens? Haitians have for decades migrated to the Dominican Republic to find work. A lot of the work is horrible. Sugarcane plantations. They're called, I think I'm pronouncing it right, batey, B-A-T-E-Y. But there's a lot of racism, anti-Black racism in the Dominican Republic. Now, many Dominicans are Black people. It's a bit amusing here in New York. Someone who looks like me will say, "I'm not Black, I'm Dominican," as if a nationality. They do. It happens all the time, as if this nationality means you are not Black. But yes. So Haitians have been part of the Dominican Republic for decades, but have been victims of oppression all during that time. Yes. Some years ago, about 10 years ago, Haiti passed a law which made people of Haitian descent who lived in the Dominican Republic, which made them undocumented. So one day people were legal residents of the Dominican Republic, and the next day they were not. This only heightened the bigotry against Haitians. And what happened with these people, I will tell you. So somebody who's born in the Dominican Republic, their parents were born in their Haitian ancestry, though. All of a sudden, they passed this law, and now you don't have permission to get health care. You don't have permission to go to school. You don't have permission to get a job. And so this was obviously a terrible thing to do to those individuals. It also put darker skinned Black Dominicans in the same category. Now they're being discriminated against. There's always a desire in the DR to deport as many Haitians as possible, which they're accelerating now, which is what that and other articles we've had in Black Agenda Report lately have described. So the Dominican Republic plays this terrible role in oppressing Haiti. And Haitians, immigrants there, or Dominicans of Haitian descent there. And it's something that does not get enough attention. No. So as you say, Black Agenda Report is the place to get it. But I want to say about Haiti in general, the worst thing that can happen for Haiti is to have another occupation. That's the last thing Haiti needs. Haiti has been victimized. First by France, which stole their assets over decades. The United States sent the Marines when Woodrow Wilson was president, literally stole money out of the banks in Haiti. The U.S. propped up the dictators, the Duvaliers, although the oligarchs in Haiti, and we've had a couple articles about this, the oligarchs of Haiti are lighter skinned people of Middle Eastern ancestry and European ancestry. They call them Bam Bam because their last name's B-A-M and B-A-M. So I hope people look that up. But they're the ones who control Haiti. They're wealthy. They're not just the richest people in Haiti. They're some of the richest people in the Caribbean. And they're the ones who run the country. The U.S. works with them to make sure that the popular will is never realized. The one true president, that is to say, who was elected, who the people wanted, Jean-Bertrand Aristide, the Bush Jr., Bush 43 administration, literally kidnapped him and assisted with a coup backed by those forces. But the Haitian people keep protesting, and you see this footage of people protesting, and they talk about Haitian gangs. There are gangs in Haiti, but the footage is generally of people protesting. They're protesting against the puppets that the U.S. puts in place, protesting against the sweatshops that Bill and Hillary Clinton brought there, protesting against the fact Hillary Clinton forced them to have, and that, of course, her boss, Barack Obama, too, forced them to redo an election to get the person in that they wanted. So people in Haiti are always in movement. They are always in a state of protest. But these gangs who get these arms from where? Well, I wonder where. These oligarchs are the ones who give them this military grade weaponry. And then everybody's like, oh, there's gangs in Haiti. How did that happen? So that's what people need to know. During the last occupation, some of those UN, and the UN is no friend to Haiti, UN troops from Nepal were literally dumping their crap in a river and brought cholera to Haiti. Cholera is still in Haiti to this day, years later. Haiti does not need an occupation. Haiti needs democracy. It needs to be left alone. But instead, the US and the core group, as they call themselves, the UN, the EU, France, Canada, they just pick presidents for Haiti. So President Jovenel Moise fell out of favor with the oligarchy last year and was assassinated. So now there's this, he's called the Prime Minister, Ariel Henry, but the people didn't elect him. The core group chose him. And you mentioned AMLO, the president of Mexico, President Mr. Lopez Obrador, is among those working with the UN to try to connive some way to have a new occupation. Lula in Brazil, Brazilian troops, while he was president, occupied Haiti. So there are people who get credit for being on the left, but they aren't when it comes to Haiti. And that's something else that people have to be very careful of.
Go ahead, CJ.
Let me, yeah, because I have a question to kind of piggyback on that. That when you're adding that the true history there about Lula, how much of this about Haiti and every other country's participation in perpetuating the state, the status of where Haiti is now, has to do with the successful overthrow of slavery there? Like, how much is that still, this is for payback for that?
I think it's revenge against the Haitian people for daring to rise up. I think you're absolutely right. They are African people who overthrew a colonial power, France. Haiti was so profitable to France. France had to sell their U.S. territories. The Louisiana Purchase, which was almost half of what's now the United States, belonged to France. They hadn't really settled it, though, except in Louisiana, a couple other places. At any rate, because they lost this very profitable plantation economy, they had to sell what is called the Louisiana Purchase to the United States, which nearly doubled the country in size. The irony is that it expanded also the territory for enslavement. But at any rate, but that's what the Haitian Revolution achieved, and that's why it's been under attack since the beginning. France threatening to invade and stealing their money, and as I, not to repeat myself, but you're absolutely right. This was revenge against Black people for daring to stand up. Haiti is an example for the world. They still use Haiti. I spoke of these oligarchs. This is why it's in everyone's interest in the region to fight for Haitian true independence and true sovereignty. When people want to go on strike, let's say in Central America, let's say in Guatemala, as sweatshop workers, and they want to go on strike, what's the first thing they're told? Well, if you go on strike, we'll just leave here and go to Haiti. So that gives you an example of the role that what has been done to Haiti, what it means for the world. Venezuela, though, has been a friend, and the late Hugo Chavez used their oil wealth to help other Caribbean nations. But the Haitian oligarchs stole the money. That's another thing that people protest
Yeah.
in Haiti. So every black person in the world should be a friend to the Haitian people. And that
Right.
means opposing all of these forces that want to keep this country subjugated.
And
It's the same sort of strategy. Let me just add this, and then
go
you can
ahead.
answer a question.
Go
It's
ahead.
the same strategy they do on the black population everywhere, where this is constant disabling because they're afraid of us mobilizing. It's a constant perpetuation of disabling our communities, and it's the same sort of thing that happens here. You see, there. Go ahead.
Yeah, and I love the point that you bring up, Margaret, when you talk about the shadow white oligarchy in Haiti, and it's something I'm learning more recently. And when you look at the politics of a lot of the countries in the global South and in South America, it is way more black and white than here. We have all these random culture wars. It's much more of a class war. Like when you look at Venezuela, when you look at Brazil, and now you look at Haiti as well. It's largely a class war. I'm gonna show you guys this. This is a great account I follow. They always post a lot of great stuff about Haiti, and they explain, and a lot of people, once again, this is something I'm recently learned about. Like when you look at a lot of the forces that are responsible for Haitian exploitation, they're this white, rich capitalist class within Haiti. And I actually read one of your articles in Black Agenda Report. You guys explain how they spend a lot of money and they use their power and resources to stay hidden in Western media as well. Like if you watch like MSNBC, CNN, Washington Post coverage, they will never mention these people. It's almost that's why I call them shadow oligarchs. They want to be hidden and remain behind the scenes, so people are like, oh, look at these black people who can't run their own
Right.
country, but it's actually these rich, white, powerful people. As you explained earlier, Morgan, you can speak on this some more as well.
What is
that
their
is
descent
helping-
again? You described their descent, and
Sure.
what is their
So-
ethnic descent again?
Some of them are Middle Eastern. So some
Okay.
of them came from Lebanon and Syria, some European, Germans, but they are white people or light-skinned people. They are not African-descended people, that's for sure. And but they are the ones who run the country, and they are the ones that the U.S. uses to get what it wants from Haiti. We had a great, I had an interview and we had an article from writer Jafrik Aiti, who if you want to do something about Haiti, he's one of the people I recommend you talking to. About the history of their presence in the country and what they do up until this day. And yes, they are hidden. New York Times and Washington Post won't tell you about them. So it's just a story about black people not being able to govern themselves, and not the story of international capital oppressing Haiti with the help of the US and Canada and France and the EU and even the UN.
Yeah, well said. Now I want to I want to read the tweet because it does a good job explaining this as well. Once again, something I'm recently learning about. If it wasn't for Twitter and Black Agenda, we probably would not know about this. They exclude
Yeah.
this part. They said just a simple reminder that Haiti has the most millionaires. Do you guys know that? Do you guys? I didn't know that until I read this tweet. Most of them migrated there in the last century to exploit Haitians. U.S. racist policies of elevating whiteness to rule majority blacks also contributed to apartheid that exists in Haiti today. So I'm glad that you brought that up. Is very important context, and this is the context I try to explain when I was talking about Brazil and Venezuela as well. Like when you look at the support even that Lula had, it was poor, even evangelical blacks. When you look at Venezuela, most of people that support Hugo Chavez and Nicolas Maduro was indigenous. 40% of the population is indigenous. Then you had brown and black people supporting them. And then in Venezuela, you had the Juan Guaido class, the white, rich Venezuelans that sided with capital, and they wanted to open up the country to U.S. companies, right? And this class war is very persistent throughout South America. That is the result of the Cold War. But I'm gonna shift to the next topic. CJ, anything else you want to add? Anything else you want to add regarding Haiti?
I do not
next
necessarily a question, but it feels like, and I think this is a good thing, a good way to end this segment, and then you can move to the next story. But it feels like to me, after we get Margaret's comment on this, feels like to me, and I was saying this when I did an interview with Alan D. Lath from he's for Abolishing Children Protective Services. And when you analyze it, the United States, you analyze the world capitalism internationally, it feels like the slavery industrial complex never ended. They just sort of changed the messaging. So slavery went away in the United States, but 13th Amendment went to prison. Like taking children away from Black and brown indigenous people went away. It just went to Child Protective Services. So it just feels like we thought these people, capitalists who were making money off slavery, were just going to go, let's outlaw slavery and stop making money. That's not what happened here. That's just not what happened. And that to me is something to me in probably the last month that I'm waking up like, this stuff has not changed. This is just like a dressing they put on. You know what I mean? They just dressed the slave up and to look nicer. They gave him a nice house and then some, get the ability to get a haircut, and he's on TV. He can purchase items. And this is something I say to Black people all the time. Describe your freedom without talking about something you got to use money for. It's hard to do. Yeah. So do you want to comment, or we can move on?
Yeah. You're absolutely right. Civil War defeated the Confederacy and defeated chattel slavery. But what did they do right away? One of the post-Civil War amendments, the 13th Amendment, did away with involuntary servitude, except for punishment for committing a crime, which is why people incarcerated in this country have to work Some states pay them nothing. Some pay them a pittance. Some charge them for being in jail. So even if they are being paid anything, they end up leaving jail in debt.
Sharecropping. That's comes from sharecropping.
Yes. If I know people who say if prisoners make something, it should say made in prison. We should know when when somebody else is benefiting from prison labor. They had convict leasing system that which was only outlawed in the 1930s. Black people could be snatched up anywhere. They could accuse you of being a vagrant or anything else they wanted to make up and send you to jail so that you could work for nothing. And so you're absolutely right. And the prison industrial complex continues to this day. 2 million incarcerated people. Half of them are Black. Are Black people half of the population? No, we are not. The U.S. has both more people in prison than any other country in the world, but also a greater percentage of its population incarcerated. So I always remember this when they want to tell me about human rights in China or tell you about the Uyghurs, and most of what you're told about them is wrong. And there weren't a million Uyghurs. Nobody ever claimed, although when they want to really spread the propaganda, it's 5 million Uyghurs, it's 10 million, it's 20 million. I'm like, well, how many is it? Come on. But and child protective services. We've had some articles, and I've done some interviews on Black Agenda Radio with activists on this issue. Black children can be taken from their parents for any reason at all. Usually it's just because people are poor. So if a family runs out of, and there are all these mandated reporters, teachers, nurses. So if someone tells their teacher, we don't have food in the house, the teacher is supposed to report this, and the family can be charged with neglect, and the kids can be taken from them and put into foster care, and nobody ever benefits from being in foster care. There are very few kids in foster care who really could not be cared for at home. I mean, they do have kinship foster care here in New York. There are a lot of kids in that, but even then, the entire system is broken, and it's meant to keep Black people in this state of servitude that you mentioned.
Yeah,
and it's profitable. I didn't know this,
Yes.
Nick. They make money to take your kids and give them to white people and pay white people money to have your kids, essentially, is what's happening. I learned that in the interview I did on Friday.
Yeah,
Like
they do
that is
that. Some of these agencies, these foster care agencies, they make a fortune. They have these contracts with cities and states,
yes,
and they're
it's good.
people making money off of this theft of children. Most of the time is not warranted.
Yeah,
Go ahead, Nick.
that's what I want to move on to the next part or the next half of this conversation will be focused on China. And I know what you guys are saying. What, Nick? Why do you guys cover China so much? One, the China overtaking the United States as a global power is probably one of the most important stories in my lifetime since the War on Terror. Right? It's probably the most interesting story to cover, and the fact that we are independent media. So what is independent media supposed to do? Like the boutique left, the old school left, they've been so bad. A lot of people forget that independent media is supposed to challenge the narratives that come in from our government. If you watch a lot of left media, they're repeating anti-China rhetoric. They're repeating anti-Russian rhetoric. I know you've seen it as well, Margaret Kimberley. So on this channel, we're going to debunk the crazy nonsense. I'm glad we have Margaret for this upcoming China segment because the Black Agenda Report among the best when it comes to debunking anti-China nonsense. We got quite a few of them. So I'm gonna show you guys some of the narratives.
Quite a few.
I'll show you guys quite some of the narratives
Uh,
that come out. And the United States is, without a doubt, the most propagandized country in the world. Not even close. And when we get through this segment, you guys will see why. So I'm going to show you guys some things they say about China. And then I'm going to show you guys the funny exchange between Xi and Justin Trudeau, which was hilarious. The only thing that was probably funnier than that exchange was how Western media reacted to it. I don't know if you saw it, Mark. I want to show you. I would love to see your reaction to one of these segments I'm gonna show you. But now this is the kind of example of straight out lies they will tell about China. The biggest purveyor of misinformation is our media about China. Everything they say is a lie. Look at this headline from The Guardian last month. CJ, this is like our propaganda report segment here. It says Xi is seduced by a vision of greater isolation. Something you often hear all the time. They say this is another one. This is I didn't crop the date on this, unfortunately, but this was last week. See, they talking about the Xi Biden meeting that may help in China's destructive isolation. You see this keyword they keep using? China, isolation, Russian, isolated. Meanwhile, the reality of the situation, does that look like a country that is isolated to you? If you guys don't know, the graph on the bottom is showing that within 20 years, China's became the world's preferred trading partner. Meanwhile, in the West, Xi Biden meeting may help in China's destructive isolation. Xi is seduced with a vision of greater, and I'm showing you guys this just as an example of like the blatant lies they would tell.
Nick, can you put that back up there though? Can you put that back up there? Because that word seduce is a pivotal word in trying to get people to push people a particular way of thinking. That word seduce. I just wanted to point that out. And isolation, I kind of gonna slip this question in, Nick. Sorry. Yeah, why is isolation paired with China so many times or so often? What is the attempt by Western media to do?
Well, it's very racist. I mean, the whole I don't know if you were going to show the footage of Xi and Xi Jinping.
Yeah, we're going to get there.
Okay, so I won't preempt it then because I watched it over and over again. It was so wonderful.
Yeah, we're gonna get there. We're gonna get there. Don't worry.
The point of that, all of these attacks on China are racist. And I say this, as soon as I say this, somebody say, well, there's anti-Black racism in China. Okay. There is in the country I live in also, by the way. But we cannot be under any pretense that these attacks on China are racist. The only white countries are supposed to be on top.
Yes.
And China has made this great leap. They had the great leap forward under Mao. I mean, they really made a great leap in the last 20 or 30 years. Do you know China eliminated extreme poverty? They brought 100 million people out of poverty. This isn't even on the agenda in the US. Nobody talks
Yes.
about bringing anybody out of. There was a war on poverty, which succeeded somewhat in the 60s, early 70s. But now it's discredited, and we're supposed to act like it, it was a bad thing. But China is some say it's the second largest economy in the world after the U.S. Some say it's already surpassed the U.S. And that is why the U.S. hates China. It's not about China being communist. They always say the Chinese Communist Party, and it's actually Communist Party of China. It's CPC, by the way. Sending
You see, they love saying that. I'm gonna show you guys an example of that later. They love saying that, but go ahead, Margaret.
I know, because the words communist and Chinese are real. China's not scary enough, so you have to add communist to it.
They like, just in case our audience isn't racist, let's just add the communist part to it.
Right. So a few years ago, these protests in Hong Kong were all ginned up by the United States. The NED, the National Endowment for Democracy, which is the CIA. It's the CIA soft power arm, which sought to destabilize China by destabilizing Hong Kong. Hong Kong is China. Taiwan is China. That's it. That's all. Officially, the U.S. Accepts this one China policy, but they use Hong Kong and they use Taiwan to try to destabilize the power of the Chinese government and the power of its economy. But it's too late. The horse already ran out of the barn. You can try to close the gate now, but also China got a big help from finance capital here. So they said, well, we don't want to make anything anymore, so we'll let the Chinese do that. Or they got China in the World Trade Organization so they could make cheap stuff for toys to sell at Walmart or something. And they took the ball and ran with it. And now there's this buyer's remorse. There's this envy. There's this racist hatred towards China. And China, by the way, wanted to get along with the U.S. They called it the win-win. Basically, you let us make money, you leave us alone, and we won't say anything about the dirt you do all over the world. So when the vote in the UN in 2011 came up to approve this no-fly zone over Libya, China and Russia abstained, which they should not have done, but they did abstain. They wanted to get along. And instead of voting no, as permanent members of the Security Council, they could have done that. But at any rate, so that's where China was. But China, everything the U.S. does to maintain its hegemony backfires. So now China and Russia are like this. What did Xi say about China's relation with Russia? He said, we are better than allies. What's better than an ally? You're going to get married or something? But that tells you. And so, of course, now they're trying to tone down the rhetoric somewhat. So they were all about China's evil, China's evil. So lately they're trying to have conversations, trying to act right. But they're Chinese. You think Xi Jinping is stupid? I don't think so. So they wanted China to be against Russia and Ukraine, and whatever their feelings about it, they're not going to end their alliance with Russia because they know they're next. And they know that the Democrats hate Russia, but the Republicans hate China. The Republicans have won the House. They're already talking about, we're going to stop China from doing all these evil things, making up stories about Chinese police stations. It's like there's no Chinese police stations. It's like they have these consular offices around the country which help their citizens with paperwork and so forth. That's what they do. There aren't any Chinese police stations in the United States.
All right, so many great things that Murray touched on, and I went the Chinese secret police is definitely something I wanted to touch on. That's so absurd. We see it how we do on time, because I literally got a whole nother segment on that. And if you guys don't know, the right wing is going around everywhere saying that Joe Biden, the Democratic Party, and New York liberals allowed Chinese to set up secret police to spy on us and go after people who are soft, and they say this shit on Fox News with a straight dead face, like they reporting news, the Chinese set up secret police in our backyard. It's literally one of the most ridiculous things. I'll touch back on that in a second, because there are a lot of great things that you said there. I'm gonna go back to what you said earlier, to the racist element as well, where a lot of people are just white Americans, they are horrified at the idea of a white country not being on top. And CJ, think about all the videos that we've shown on the channel when they say China poses a grave threat to the United States. And we're like, what the fuck you talking about? Because we're black. But that's cold when they, I'm going to show you guys an example right now on Fox News when they be like, China is our biggest threat. China is our biggest threat. How? White Americans, when they watch that, they know what they're talking about. Not a white country on top. That's why they're a threat. That's why we're not supposed to understand it, CJ. They're talking to each other.
They're not talking about us. They're not talking to us.
And once again, I'm gonna show you guys an example because this is regarding the Trudeau G meeting, and we're gonna play the meeting first. And I'm gonna show you guys the reaction of Fox News afterwards because Justin Trudeau is like he's definitely a right-wing capitalist, but the Republicans hate him. He's like the Hillary Clinton of Canada. They hate him. But they hate China so much that they ran to Justin Trudeau's defense. Like their hatred of Justin Trudeau, that fake culture war that they do, their hatred of China transcends that. and I kind of spoiling it because we was on that topic. But let's get to the video that I know Margaret couldn't wait to break down. And I saw this once again. This is literally 4 days ago that I saw this. But I was waiting for a good time to break it down, and having Margaret on here is probably the best time to do that. So this is they had in Indonesia, was it the G7, if I'm getting that right? The meeting of all the significant world leaders.
G20.
G20. Sorry, I got the number wrong. G20, the G20 event. And President Xi, the entire time, was walking around like the guy with the biggest dick because he is the guy with the biggest dick in the room and everyone knows it. So this moment was spectacular. I let it play and I think it speaks for itself. This is the tweet, just so you guys get subtext. It said, this from New York Times, President Xi accused Canada Prime Minister Justin Trudeau of leaking details from an earlier conversation between them to reporters. Now look at Xi completely sunning this guy. Now let's play the video.
Everything we discuss is then leaked to the paper. That's not appropriate. And that's not how the way the conversation was conducted. If there is sincerity on your part,
free and open and frank dialogue, and that is what we will continue to have. We will continue to look to work constructively together, but there will be things we will disagree on.
Let's create the conditions first.
So there was a lot of people breaking that down. And you guys see how Justin Trudeau went to immediate robot, liberal bullshit talking points. But if you guys couldn't hear it, that was China. G's calling them out. Margaret, I'm very interested in your opinion. What's your take on that?
Well, it's like, well, here's what happened. Actually, let me go back a couple years to when Trump was president. One of the stupidest things that Trump people did, John Bolton in particular, they got the Chinese to try to arrest the CFO of Huawei, Meng Wanzhou. And the Canadians, being little vassals of the U.S., instead of saying, no, we're not going to arrest Meng Wanzhou, they did. This created a huge international incident. China ended up arresting 2 Canadians. This went on for she was under house arrest in Vancouver. So that's the first thing. So Canada needs to be careful with China because Xi Jinping, and the thing I appreciate about China is they're mature. They're not amateurish. They're smart. And so instead of saying, after you pulled that crap with Meng Wanzhou, we're not talking to you ever. No, they had a meeting with Trudeau. As the translator said, they leaked everything from the meeting to the newspaper. And Xi Jinping was not having it and walked up on him with the camera crew. Did you notice? Did you notice the translator?
That's gangster right there. He was like, that's gangster. He was like, come on, let's go.
And Margaret, there was a lot. I saw a lot of coverage. You see a little bit. I'm gonna show you guys only one clip of corporate media talking about it. But there are a lot of people. They're like, well, I think the G planned this. It was a planned ambush. Yes, that's the point.
Yes, that's gangster. That was gangster right there.
Gangster in a good way, and
yes, of course.
But you see what and Xi Jinping's very measured man, very disciplined. People, I think I'm going to digress a little. It's unfortunate that Americans are not given this information about world leaders,
Yeah.
that we know about them. Xi Jinping's father was purged by Mao. During the Cultural Revolution, he and other millions of young people were sent to the countryside to work in villages. So he went from being this, pampered elite kid to, digging wells in some little village far from Beijing.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, but he became an engineer, and most of the leaders of China are engineers. They're technical people. We got dumb lawyers like Joe Biden, but anyway.
Yeah.
um, and so this is a man, he applied several times to become a member of the Communist Party. You can't just pay dues and become a member of the Communist Party. So he was rejected more than once, but persevered, climbed the ladder to become the president. And so I wanted to say that. So this is a man who knows his stuff, who's smart, who's disciplined, and he saw this little dumbass Justin Trudeau, and he didn't bitch slap him like he could have, but he did the equivalent of that. He's like, come on, let's go. Brings a translator and a cameraman. And the nerve of Canada, after what they did, to think that it's okay, but this is the white supremacy again. And of US and Canada and other countries, they cannot stand the fact that they're not on top anymore.
Yes.
China and Russia, there's a whole new axis of power. The US even messed up their relationship with Saudi Arabia, for God's sake. So they're like, don't buy Russian oil. India's like, actually, we're going to buy Russian oil. So what are you going to do about it? India's buying China and Russia. They're doing deals with these countries, and the axis has shifted. And people don't know any of this. And apparently Justin Trudeau's too dumb to know it. So he's going to try to be slick and leak the conversation, and apparently not even tell the truth about what he leaked. But China said, actually, no, dude, things have changed. You're a little pampered rich kid because your father was the prime minister. I call him Obama Jr. He reminds me of Obama. He gets all these
He's such a weasel. Such a fascist little weasel. And I don't play the video again. I'll play the video again.
Let's not forget his blackface. Remember him being in blackface?
Yeah.
So, and you make a great point, because despite any disagreements you guys may have of them, no one can say that Vladimir Putin and Xi are not smart people. Vladimir Putin, when you hear him speak, is a very well-spoken. You can obviously tell he reads a lot, a lot about geopolitics. Compare that to the United States, where we got dumb Donald Trump. We got half-sleep Joe Biden. We got all these more. You guys ever heard Nancy Pelosi
slogans?
Our leaders, Nancy, and not even just the Trump is the clown show, but everyone is as dumb as Trump. Like, when you listen to Nancy Pelosi speak, Joe Biden speak, Jean-Pierre, any of these liberals, all of them is dumb. All the people that our country is ruled by mediocrity that they got because of their connections. If you come from capital, there's a greater chance of your success. We are ruled by dumb leaders. And once again, even if you dislike these people, when you look at Maduro, when you look at Putin, when you look at Xi, these are competent people. Now, let's play the video one more time so you can see this little weasel squirm. Because this is a competent, well-read leader going up against someone who was groomed by the Western media. So let's watch it again, because I know we greatly enjoy this. Just like you, Margaret, I watched this multiple times. And then I want you guys to pay attention to his response, because G is calling him out face-to-face like a man. And Justin, because he lacked any sort of intellectual capacity, immediately goes back to his script.
Yep.
Welcome. Let's play it again. You guys see what I'm talking about. Look, you guys see the robotic neoliberal script that he plays.
Everything we discuss is then leaked to the paper. That's not appropriate.
Is the audio on? I think I might have messed up. Can you hear it?
No, I can hear.
Okay, sorry.
Everything we discuss is then leaked to the paper. That's not appropriate. And that's not how the way the conversation was conducted.
Now, this is part I want to emphasize on the rewatch. Look at Justin's response to this. This little weasel coach motherfucker. Listen to this.
We believe in free and open and frank dialogue, and that is what we will continue to have.
We believe in free and frank open dialogue. Now, shut the fuck up, you fake.
Well, you know what?
That's because the camera's there. That's because the camera's there.
But he
Go
was
ahead,
too.
Margaret.
But he was too stupid to even apologize, because he could have said, well, he wasn't expecting it. Of course, he just figured he'd get away with this because that's what they do all the time. Instead of saying, there must have been some misunderstanding, Mr. President. I apologize that this happened, and it won't happen again. Of course, we respect your something like that. But he was so confounded, he goes into cliches and platitude, and then skulks off and almost bumps into somebody because he's been whipped and beat down so badly.
Discombobulated.
Let's play it again. You guys look at the immediate trained script. Like this is not someone who thinks on the fly. Someone who's used to these kind of high tense situations. Like let's watch it again, because this is probably the most interesting part of the video to me.
In Canada, we believe in free and open and frank dialogue, and that is what we will continue to have. We will continue to look to work constructively together, but there will be things we will disagree on, and we will have to.
And this point where G like, all right, shut the fuck up. And this point like, bro, shut the fuck up. I know what you're doing here. He literally halfway cuts him off here.
Let's create the conditions first.
And then let's watch him paddle away here. All right, so that's funny.
Can I let me give you a little insight on what happened right before we caught that. So G was over in the corner. He saw him. He was like, "Hey, oh, that's homeboy. That's homeboy that did that. Yeah. Hey, let's go. Get the camera. Let's go." He's like, "Let's go." Right? Went over there. They was like, he ran over there and was like, "Hey, what's up, man?" And that's when we see him. But that's exactly what happened. He saw him from across the room. He was like, "Oh, that's homeboy that did that." Yep. Get the camera.
Ran up on homie. So I want to
very funny.
I want you to react to this as well, Margaret, because I like to debunk the propaganda on here. That's what we do, propaganda report. So I'm gonna show you guys this clip from Fox News reacting to that, because I could have pulled a lot of different media outlets, because the Western reaction, I don't know how much you follow this, Margaret, but the Western reaction to this was hilarious, because they had to find a way to spin this meeting as a negative for China, even though he obviously punked and made Justin look weak there. And I cannot emphasize this enough. I don't know how much you guys follow this, but right-wing media in the United States do not like Justin Trudeau. And not only just because of the COVID thing, they never liked him because he like this liberal. His gimmick is pretending to be a social justice warrior. So they're like he's their nemesis in terms of political theater, right? Even though he's a right-wing capitalist who agrees with them on all their foreign wars, agree with them on Ukraine. And by the way, this segment I'm gonna pull up, I easily could have broke down the first 3 minutes, because you guys, I'm gonna pull it up here. You see, I skipped like 4 minutes of this because now they're gonna break down the G Justin meeting, and I want you guys to see what they said there. But they also did a part where they were talking about Ukraine and Zelensky that was extremely cringe, and I'm debating breaking it down. So that's why people keep pretending that the Republicans are against Ukraine. No, are you guys paying attention? There's only like 2 of them that's against it. Meanwhile, the entire Republican and right-wing media apparatus, they praise and they worship Zelensky the same as CNN and MSNBC does. But for the sake of time, I skipped that part, and we're gonna go to the Justin Trudeau China part. And remember, these people hate Justin Trudeau. They usually attack him all the time, but even they are pissed because their hatred of China transcends their bullshit political theater in North America. So, for example, Mitch McConnell and the Republicans, they would pretend they would hate Nancy Pelosi. They pretend they got this beef with Pelosi and vice versa. But they are all in lockstep in agreement when it comes to China, when it comes to Venezuela. And that pretend rivalry is exactly that. Pretend, when you realize how they feel about their true adversary. So let me play this part, and I want you to react, Margaret, and we get you out of here, because this is their response to the Trudeau meeting. So let's check it out.
I just want you to say, I want you to see this. I don't know if you could see from the monitor there, but President Xi, in front of the cameras with a translator, confronted President Trudeau of Canada, essentially saying, "You leaked our conversation to the press," but it seems like he wanted the world to see it. Watch.
Everything we discuss is then leaked to the paper. That's not appropriate.
而且我们也不是那样进行的。
And that's not how the way the conversation was
如
conducted.
果有诚心，咱们就以互相尊重的态度来进行很好的沟通。
If there is
否则这个结果就不好说了。
if there is
Canada, we
sincerity
believe
on
in
your part,
free and open and frank dialogue, and that is what we will continue to have. We will continue to look to work constructively together, but there will be things we will disagree on. We will have
皆可以签学生。
创造条件，创造条件。
Let's create the conditions first.
So was that on purpose, Ambassador? And what do you take from that exchange?
Well, she has a lot of chutzpah. I mean, that's calling the pot calling the kettle black. First of all, the Chinese do exactly what they want, when they want. They leak, they don't leak. And as far as I'm concerned, if Trudeau decided it was in Canada's best interest to leak some or all of that meeting, he had his strategic reasons, and I'm not going to second guess it.
Bruh, these are the people who criticize Justin Trudeau all the time. And then he said, if Trudeau and the Canadian government believe it was right for them to leak that information, they had the right to do it.
Yeah, well, you know, imperialism is bipartisan. So while I think it's interesting that Marjorie Taylor Greene will say what progressives should be saying about Ukraine, in the end, her leadership will slap her down.
Yeah.
And they will go right along with Biden's plan about Ukraine or about China, because their interest as a racial interest of keeping white people on top, of keeping the U.S. on top. Of course, if there's a public confrontation between Xi and Trudeau, they're going to suddenly side with Trudeau. So I'm not at all surprised, but he says he did this on purpose. And I'm like, yes, he did. And I'm glad. We should all be glad. And I just want to say the multipolar world is a reality. And we all need to get on board with that. They cannot change it. It cannot be. The United States' only choice is to live in peaceful coexistence with other countries, to use diplomacy, to try to get along, to try to prevent conflicts, like preventing what's going on in Ukraine. It could all have been prevented with diplomacy. But if you want to be a hegemon, you don't need diplomacy, because you think you can do what you want, and you have little vassals, little puppet states like Canada to help you. But I loved watching this. I watched it, I'm not sure how many times. I loved the New York Times has the best quality footage. If anybody is also interested in watching it over and over again.
Yeah, I'm gonna finish the clip and I'll get our reaction. I just want to show you guys what they say about China and just how absolutely ridiculous it is. So let's it's only in just a minute here.
Strategic reasons, and I'm not going to second guess it. I would have told Xi to buzz off.
Absolutely. And this is what I get from your book. Between what you said and Trump's style, just breaking the norms made progress. There's too much ceremony. We don't get enough done, and the stakes are too high. Final thought.
Well, the career State Department is all about the journey, not the destination. And one of the
All right, nothing else to hear from him. Actually, I want to get to the part. Oh, I don't gotta say, because what he said about Zelensky is so fucking annoying. It's so it's like right before this part. Let's see. I want to hear this part.
Like Zelensky would say, essentially.
Oh yeah, this is part. I just want to hear this. Sorry, I'm doing this. I just want to hear. I want to show you guys this part. I remember hearing this. Like, what?
It's about where we go from here if you still have the EU ambassador title.
Well, Brian, how many leaders like Zelensky would say, essentially, I need bullets, not a ride out of here? A lot of leaders would be hightailing it out of the war zone and living off of their Swiss bank account. Zelensky, pardon my French, has big balls, and we should be supporting him all
Zelensky has big balls because he's selling out his own people to NATO. But look, watch it get worse.
the way through. We got there a little late. We're doing okay. We need to end this war by making Zelensky's, campaign decisive. And there is no equivocation. Ukraine is the doorstep to Europe. And it's only a short stop into NATO territory. And we need to end this before it drags on.
So I just want to show you guys his take on Ukraine too, because I do not buy this bullshit that people keep pushing, where they like, oh, the Republicans, they will, and no, they will not. No, they will not. But Margaret, do you want to chime in? And I know we gotta get you out here soon. Go
Yes,
ahead,
yes,
Margaret.
and you're absolutely right. They will not. It's all bipartisan. Zelensky's an actor. He's now a very wealthy man, the oligarch, and oligarchs run Ukraine, top to bottom. And they used to report on this before last February, by the way, how Ukraine is the poorest country in Europe, the most corrupt country
Yep.
in Europe. Of course, those two things are linked. And he's an actor. He was talking to Russia until they sent Boris Johnson over to scuttle those talks. So he could have talked to Russia, but the US told him not to because they're living in a fantasy land. But Ukrainians are, to your point, are suffering because of the United States, because of Zelensky, and he may well end up outside of Ukraine living off his millions of dollars. He's a very rich guy, as I just said. So, he's like, I don't need bullets. I don't need a ride and whatever. I don't care what he said. Russia is eventually going to grind down the Ukrainian military. It is taking longer, I think, than they thought it would, but it did not have to happen. I am not one in favor of wars. I want this to end, but it can only end with talks. And that means you have to accept, because they screwed it up. These people are also not smart. Had they been smart, they could have ended this a long time. They could have gotten a lot of what they wanted. They wanted the Europeans to sanction Russia. Now the Europeans are paying too much for energy, and they're going to be cold this winter, and they're forcing them to buy U.S. fracked gas instead of the Russian natural gas, which makes more sense to them. They could have gotten some of that, but they want the whole thing. They have some fantasy about breaking up Russia or getting Putin out of office or some such nonsense. It is not going to happen.
So ridiculous.
And in the process, thousands of Ukrainians are going to continue suffering.
Yeah, well said. I want to before we get you out here, Mario, because I want to do the segment because I had prepared. You brought the Chinese secret police, so I want to get your reaction to this before we get you out here real quick, because this is another segment I saw on Fox where I saw this multiple times. I really didn't bat an eye because at first I thought it was maybe one rogue propagandist going too far saying this Chinese
rogue propagandist.
One or two times I was like, I ignored that. Then I saw this segment on Fox after already seeing a few right-wing influencers pushing it China. I was like, all right, time to do the segment where we debunk this. So here's the footage from Fox News, and I can't wait to see Margaret's response to this, where they are attacking and pretending that they had these secret police in China. So yeah, I want the beginning kind of bullshit. Blackmail. And also, I actually do rewind at the beginning because Fox News keep doing this shit where they keep pretending. Look at the title of the video. I was expecting something else. They said Biden administration has been very weak on China. In what universe? They keep doing this. The guy who armed and sent weapons to Taiwan. They keep pretending that Biden is weak on China. He is not. He's unhinged. But anyway, I want to get to the video, so I don't keep you too long.
Yeah, that was
I just want you to
Florida
react
Senator
to
Rick
this
Scott
here.
questioning FBI Director Christopher Wray last week. Wray confirming the Chinese Communist Party has secret police stations in the United States so they can monitor, harass, even blackmail those who are critical of the Xi Jinping regime.
First thing first, does that even make sense? Like, does that even make sense? Before we debunk it with facts and knowledge, does that even make sense? The United States is so propagandized, they can say whatever, and people will believe it. Anyway, let's continue, and I'll give you guys
thoughts. Right now is Oklahoma Congressman Kevin Hern. Congressman, thanks very much for being here. We talk a lot about the CCP on this program, and I've been raising the alarm on these police stations. Your thoughts on the fact that the CCP has a police station in New York?
Maria, it's great to be with you. First of all, I think we all have to recognize China is our greatest threat, and we've got to start acting like it. If you go all the way back to Eric,
remember what I said, CJ? When they say China is our biggest threat, we got to act like it. They're not talking to us. That's them talking to each other like China's a threat because they're going to overthrow Western hegemony. But they want you to fill that blank in. So when they say China's a threat, they got dumb rednecks like, oh shit, China's about to invade the U.S. Fuck. Anyway, let's continue.
About what the Democrats have allowed to happen with him having an affair with a known spy. the refusal to allow us to look at Hunter Biden and China relationships over the last 2 years, which we will do starting in January, and seeing the connection to the Biden administration and what it's done to this country. And now we see the Secretary of Homeland Security and the DOJ and the FBI acknowledging that they know these police stations exist, but for national security purposes, they can't talk about it. And then when you go and actually talk to the Chinese about
All right, just for a second time, you guys see what they're saying. Margaret, what's your reaction before we get you out of here?
It's scary to me that there's so many Americans who can be whipped into a frenzy about nonsense. It could be, remember a few years ago it was Sharia law. People said there was going to be Sharia law. Then it was critical race theories being taught in school. Actually, it's not. It could be now kids are being groomed. It could be any number of things. And Fox is actually, in my opinion, no worse than the New York Times in keeping people misinformed. But there aren't any Chinese police stations. They have consular offices. But if you want to propagandize people, you'll tell them that China has police stations in the United States.
According to them, China has police stations in the United States. They got secret police stations in the UK. They got secret police stations in the Netherlands. So like China's secret police stations in the UK must be investigated. And then, this is there you go. China accused of operating secret police stations in the Netherlands. They just say whatever, and people just believe it. And as you know, obviously this is bullshit. And you explain this, Margaret. They literally assist overseas Chinese nationals, and it's just one description, who need help with online service platforms and getting their driver license. So they're like a DMV. They're like a DMV, and they do basic functions for many people that are from China who needs assistance from their government. So then the Western media took that and said that China is launching police officers. They have police officers all over the world to spy on government to make sure they implement pro-Chinese politicians. No, that is not the Onion. That's the report you saw from Fox News. But Margaret, I give you last thought because I know I appreciate your time.
I just think it's ridiculous. But the United States, it's funny they mentioned the Netherlands. The Netherlands is a leader. I didn't know this until a few days ago. A leader in chip production, computer chip production. But the U.S. is trying to, in a futile way, destroy China's computer chip production process. So they're telling people, Americans, you can't work for a Chinese company. They're hurting chip manufacturers here. They're hurting chip manufacturers in the Netherlands. This is another futile effort on the part of the U.S. to try to stop China's economic prowess. They are going to do nothing except hurt themselves, except hurt countries that are supposedly allies. But that's what a hegemon does. And I guess that's my last word.
Yeah, thank you. Any last thing you want to plug, your book? Any last thoughts that you want to send with us? Thank you for joining us once again, Margaret.
Presidential, Black America and the Presidents. It's a great book. Buy it for the holidays.
Yeah,
always
fun. Always great to have you on, Margaret. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Margaret.
Make sure you guys check out Black Agenda Report as well.
BlackAgendaReport.com. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Always a pleasure to have Margaret on. I have one more story. It's quick because it's referencing China. That we didn't necessarily have time. I didn't want to keep Margaret long.
And we didn't talk about this, Nick, but I'm gonna be on for a while. So my daughters are on spring break, so I don't have that. Oh, I gotta hurry up and get off this week. So I'm
dope.
I can So no.
Yeah, I may pass to you, but I stay on a little bit. But I may pass to you.
Yeah, I got a couple of stories. That's all.
If you guys, I cut that other video off earlier. I may finish on my own because we only played like a minute because I didn't want to keep Margaret longer than the hour that she promised.
Yeah, we had a lot, and you didn't get to like another 40% of the shit we wanted to talk to her about.
And I actually sped up the China segment. I actually sped it up too. So I'm gonna let's watch just a little bit more of this, just a little bit more, and then I'll move on to the next point because, as I mentioned at the very beginning of the stream, if you're in independent news and you're not spending a significant amount of your time rebuking the insane anti-China nonsense that is meant to stoke tensions and justify aggressive actions in China, why are you in independent media? Why are we in independent media if we're not debunking the message that coming from the mainstream corporate establishment? That doesn't make sense to me. So let's show some more of this here.
About this, all know they're not police stations. They're to help our citizens with their driver's license, yet they won't tell us where they are. So it's really suspicious.
Oh, listen. I paused a little bit too early when Margaret was here. Listen to that part again. He admits they was bullshitting, and he accidentally tells the true reason what China is doing, but he like, don't believe him. And the reason why he say they don't believe him is absurd. I rewind it for a little bit because it cut off mid-sentence. Listen to what he says.
Security purposes they can't talk about. And then when you go and actually talk to the Chinese about it, they say, oh, no, they're not police stations. They're to help our citizens with their driver's license, yet they won't tell us where they are. So it's really suspicious.
Why would they tell you? Why would they tell you private information? Like, why would they tell you where they are? As
what?
if it's your business.
Yes, CJ, that's exactly where I was getting with this. Yeah. What? He's like, so China said they were just helping people with their driver's license. So then these insane U.S. neocons like, okay, where are these people at? What would your response be if you had this insane war criminal asking you for the information of the people from your country that you're helping? They're like, we're not going to tell you. Why would we tell you? That's probably plus
some deranged white guy come up here. I ain't telling him nothing, man.
Oh, yeah, who's those people you helping? What's their address? Where they work for? They're like, well, fuck you. We're not telling you nothing. Man, let's continue. I'm not gonna watch too much of it, but I'll watch this doing chores, and this is a batshit crazy video. And I know I'm like, I'm gonna say I don't get why Americans watch this and it works. You know what I mean? My mind is so decolonized that I look at Americans the same way the most propagandized American look at North Koreans. You know what I mean? Like the average American believes that North Koreans are dumb, brainwashed people. That is you. Anyone who watch this segment on Fox News and not immediately see everything that's wrong with it, like the person that their target audience. Actually, let's go to the comments. Look, the 950 people that watch this, all these positive comments. Like they all agree with it. They dude's like, why is the world in concept of treason so different? These are the dumbest people on the planet.
What?
All the people who actually believe this news report. Anyway, let me continue because I'm just ranting at this point. Let's watch the video. I'll move on to my next part because I know you got a lot of report.
We have to start doing something about it.
Well, I mean, you touched on a number of really important issues there because you're right. Christopher Wray keeps telling us that the CCP is the biggest threat to America. The CCP is our
The CCC is the biggest threat to America, CJ.
Why do they keep saying CCP? Why do they keep saying CCP? Why do they keep saying that?
Because, like Margaret said,
do they not know it's not CPC?
Like Margaret said, saying China is not enough. They got enough racist people watching the show, but even that, they said no. Just to stay in China, we need to get more than the racists. We need to get the dumb capitalists. So we got to say the communist party of China. But anyway, this is so fascinating in so many different ways because, as we said, and Margaret said, white culture, these white Europeans, they are used to being the dominant society. So seeing these Chinese people surpass them, when they say that's a threat to America, they are talking to each other. This is a threat to our dominant white hegemon that we benefit from. So if you're black, nigga, if you're black from the streets and you're in Compton, nigga, if you're in South Kansas City and you're over here like, oh my God, the rise of China, this is a threat. What the fuck is wrong with you? They're not talking to you. Anyway, let's continue.
Whatsoever. Whatsoever. Go ahead.
I'll just rewind. I love when they say. I'll just rewind part what you said again.
Well, I mean, you touched on a number of really important issues there because you're right. Christopher Wray keeps telling us that the CCP is the biggest threat to America. The CCP is our biggest adversary. But what are they doing about it? You've got spies everywhere you look here. You're right, Eric Swalwell.
Do you guys see why I say why the United States is the most propagandized country in the world? And this is not only Fox News, guys. It will come from Democratic Party news as well, where they say there are Chinese spies in this country. Do you guys think any other country is more propagandized than this? Let's continue.
And Fang, you've got Hunter Biden and his secretary. I mean, they have infiltrated virtually every industry in this country, as Mike Pompeo.
The Chinese has infiltrated basically every industry in this country. Do I even have to do analysis or just repeating what you said is good enough?
Like this is so ridiculous. This is so like you need to be. This is beyond truth. This is like we're beyond truth, like real time. This is disturbing to me. But go ahead, you can finish it.
I just watched a little bit more because I'm only showing this for you guys for a case study because I know a lot of you people don't watch this. I watch these so I can show you what our enemies are saying. Now you guys see why I do it. Like this is how unhinged they are. It's unbelievable.
Pompeo has said to me many times the CCP is now inside the gates. So
inside the gates!
What do about it at this point? And do we have a president that is compromised and unwilling to actually hold the CCP to account?
They're talking about he's compromised because of his son,
dude.
Hunter
the Republicans,
Biden.
They keep pretending that Biden is weak on China, despite the fact that is literally the exact opposite because they are there to push for war. I don't have any other explanation. So
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to put that on.
I have no other explanation for why they keep pretending that the Democratic Party is weak on China. The
Republican Party want to turn it up more? Is that what they're trying to angle at?
And the thing is, they wouldn't. They'll just follow the empire. Like Donald Trump ramped up tensions against China because the empire told him to. So yeah, they have to play the two-party game, so they got to pretend the enemy is weak on China, even though that has no semblance in reality. Like it's Biden and the Democratic Party that pushed tensions to the extreme when Nancy Pelosi did that trip to Taiwan, and then they sent weapons to the separatists in Taiwan. So what they're saying, what they're pretending that Biden has been weak on China, bears no semblance in reality. So I just want to hear a little bit more what this guy's saying. I'll wrap up to the next part. Kind of funny.
You know, one thing the Biden administration did when they first came into office, and when you talk to them privately, as we did on Ways and Means and other classified briefings, is that they understood the importance of what President Trump did in going after China. No president had ever done what he did in going and directly confronting them on the issues they have, dealing with us in America. And the Biden administration has been very weak on follow-up to that. Even Kevin McCarthy, our majority, soon to be Speaker of the House.
All right. I think we heard enough of this insanity. But so the anti-China is so ingrained in our politics. You guys see Republicans and Democrats they compete to see who the most anti-China. Do you guys understand? So when Republicans attack Democrats, they say, oh my God, Democrats are complicit. They're in bed with the Chinese Communist Party. Meanwhile, what do Democrats say? The Republicans, they're Putin puppets. They're in the bed with the Russians. That's the pro-Russian party. Do you guys see what happened in our society? One party, both pro-war, they say the Republicans say the Democrats are in bed with China. The Democrats and the Republicans are in bed with Republicans. All for the premise of getting the population to be more pro-war, to be more hostile to Russia and China. So one last thing. This is quick, and I'll pass to you, CJ. I'm done for today. In terms of stories, we talked about the Justin Trudeau G meeting, and I'm bringing this up because this is relevant regarding the Chinese-Canada relations. I don't know if
your new segment. Should I come up with a different title or no?
Maybe.
Yeah,
maybe.
Okay. All right, I'll put something up.
Justin Trudeau. I don't know if you guys how much you guys been following this, and that's why I want to highlight this on RBN because I didn't do a segment on this. But the media over the last few days have been saying China is becoming more invested and interfering in the elections of the West. So essentially, the United States and Canada saw the success of Russiagate and said, let's repeat that, but with China. So in Canada, they started Chinese Russiagate or Chinagate. I don't know what the fuck to call it.
That's what we're gonna call it right now, Chinagate. There we go.
I want to say Chinese Russiagate. I guess that's just Chinagate. But so this came out November 8th. So we were a little bit behind on reporting. So I didn't see some people report on it, but in the mainstream media, I saw people they were making this big deal. You see in Washington Post, New York Times, Chinese interfering in Canada elections, said Justin Trudeau. So they're starting it again. And because they saw how successful Russiagate was with liberals, so they say, okay, we need to get people to become more anti-China, despite those clown segments that you show. They keep putting these clown segments all over TV. But they gotta make people even more anti-China. So what work on the liberals? What can make the liberals anti-China? the same way they're anti-Russia. Just say they're doing the same thing as Russia. So I'm going to read a little bit of this article, and I'll immediately debunk it. Once again, this don't have to be a long segment. Justin Trudeau accused Beijing of playing aggressive games with democracies and targeting Canadian institutions. And then they said, and this is the message that Trudeau and his party put out there, that 11 candidates were supported by China in the 2019 federal election. What does this sound like? This is Russiagate, but Chinese and then Canada. So, despite this, Chinese foreign ministers obviously denied this because this is ridiculous. But Trudeau went on the media tour and said that the Chinese government has bought out the opposition. They want to implement pro-Chinese policies. And that is what they brought up, right? Now, guess what? Oh, so obvious. I kind of spoiled it. Justin Trudeau, this came out yesterday. Justin Trudeau says he was not briefed on federal candidates allegedly receiving funds from China. So Justin Trudeau just made it up. Look, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau said he hasn't received any information on federal election candidates who allegedly received funds from China in the 2019 election. Bro, the Western media before, like, this came out yesterday. You see, the editor literally put an editor note that updated the story because the Westerns ran with this, and Trudeau yesterday just admitted, oh yeah, actually I didn't get briefed. I was just kind of just talking shit because I'm mad that we
I was just kind of talking shit.
But anyway, like I said, it's not too long of a story, but you gotta see how Justin Trudeau and the Canada Liberals are now repeating Russiagate, but Chinagate in Canada. First they say, oh, Chinese people are getting involved in the election. Then later, after the Western media already ran a story, Justin later come out and say, oh, no. Just talking shit. Then it wasn't a formal briefing of that. And it's also a way to smear the opposition party, the same way the Liberals are doing. Because for weeks, Justin Trudeau in Canada was saying, oh, look at our opposition. They are pro-China. The same way the Democrats look at Republicans and say, oh, these Republicans, they're Putin puppets and sympathizers. They all follow the same playbook. But anyway, CJ, I'll pass it to you.
Yeah, I think we should cover the Colorado shooting just briefly because it is something that's kind of hot. So, so let's cover that. That'll be a short story, but
I'll be right back.
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead. So, but my main story will be. Oops, I meant to do something else. Let me show you this. So, the main topic that's coming up at 5 p.m. is this topic here. The New Left with Emma and Sam Seder. They did actually a live stream today. And during this live stream, they had a guest on who actually, there was a lot of interesting points that was made during this conversation with this guest. And I think it's like a short 20-minute conversation. But I do want to discuss that. So that'll be the main story that we're going to cover. Oops, where's the thing to take this off? So that'll be the next main story, I should say, that we're going to cover after the Colorado shooting. And that's the next thing we're going to be covering. But first, let's get to some of the announcements that we didn't get to earlier today. And that is our Substack. If you're watching on replay or you joined the live stream late and wish you would have known earlier and you would have got here early to watch or to be here live when Margaret Kimberley was here, just join our Substack and you will receive notifications when we go live. We generally send them out like 30 minutes to maybe up to 2 hours ahead of time. So if you want to join our Substack, you will get those notifications. Also send them out for clips. And we will be uploading a bunch of clips today. So probably like 3 or 4 tonight, this evening. So look for those. Join our Substack if you want to get notifications for that. Like our stream. We're at 323 likes. We have 378 people. Can we push to 375? Let's push to 375 likes. And I know we gained some subscribers overnight. We crossed 25,700. Let me see what the total is right now. Give you the update on that. If you're new, you just saw the Margaret Kimberley discussion or interview, if you want to call it that. And you found us because of that interview. Subscribe. And here is the updated number, 25,745. The target is 30,000. Hashtag RBN to 30,000 is the hashtag. So, Nick, what I was telling people, I know you heard me, but I have a story with the new left. I want you to see the graphic. That's why. The new left. That's an actual picture.
CJ thumbnail game is so fire, man.
That's an actual picture of his, though. But like I didn't superimpose his head on. He did a stream dressed up like for Halloween, and that's what he wore, and that's what that's from. So I'll be discussing. They did a live stream today where they talked about the new left and just sort of like the realignment of the Bernie coalition. I thought
I'm sure they nailed it. I'm sure.
Yeah, no. So we're gonna talk about it. But their guest kind of pointed out a couple of times things like pointing out that I talk to people and people just half the people say that they don't consider AOC left. And just to see their faces when she's
I want to see their reaction to that. That's
their guests.
That's gonna hurt them. That's gonna hurt.
Yeah, we're gonna cover that. But before we get to that, we have to cover what's happening over in Colorado for our LGBTQIA community and our brothers and sisters in that community, and just a horrific shooting that happened. Today's Monday, over the weekend. Was it over the weekend? Let me put up the title here and get the details here. So let's listen to a couple of news items cover this, give us the details. Let's do this one here. This is Now This News, and let's just so we can get caught up for those that may not know just what has happened. Maybe believe it or not, there could be people that still don't know about the shooting. So let's listen.
You see somebody running towards you with a terrified face, you run in the same direction.
The grocery. Oh, wait, this is not the right one. This is the other one. Believe it or not. You believe that? This is the one I meant to play. Sorry, everybody. You believe that, Nick? I typed in Colorado shooting and multiple shootings, and from different years came up. Capitalism is winning, right? Here is the story. This is the one I meant to show right here to talk about the shooting. This is CNN. Of course, we just got to get a couple of corporate news takes so we can just get the lay of the land and their spin on it, and then we'll give our analysis of what's happening over in Colorado.
Scott, as you know, there was that mass shooting Saturday night in Colorado Springs at an LGBTQ nightclub. 5 people killed. Herschel Walker in Georgia has released a new ad today. Let's play a portion of it.
I'm Riley Gaines, a 12-time NCAA All-American.
And I'm Herschel Walker.
For more than a decade, I worked so hard. 4 a.m. practices to be the best. But my senior year, I was forced to compete against a biological male.
That's unfair and wrong.
A man won the swimming title that belonged to a woman, and Senator Warnock voted to let it happen.
Warnock's afraid to stand up for female athletes.
Herschel Walker stands up for what's right.
Pause.
Why is that?
I can't believe it got that far. I can't believe it got that far with you. I was like, man, I thought Nick was
I don't want to derail the topic, so I'll just keep this talk very short. And if you guys wonder why there wasn't a red wave, you got people suffering serious economic hard times. We got the Biden administration waging multiple wars, funding multiple genocides. You got gas. Meanwhile, they're running commercials talking about trans people in sports. And if you're investing in that culture war, congratulations on the privilege. But I promise you, no one is walking around concerned about this shit. The only people concerned about this are privileged white people on Twitter. The only people, and soccer moms who want to be the parent of the next Kobe Bryant. They want to be the parent of the next female Kobe Bryant, and no working class person care about these fucking issues. That's why the Republicans did not pull out the red wave that they thought it was going to, because they could easily won by focusing on serious issues, but instead Herschel Walker is running this joke of an ad. Like the same way that Democrats push culture war issues to distract important stuff, Republicans do the same thing. So I'll let the video continue. I don't want to hijack.
No, that you didn't derail it because the reason I'm playing this clip is to point out how corporate media has already subverted this and twisted this back to the red-blue game. That's the point that I was trying to make with playing this clip. But you make another good point. Layers on top of layers you get here are making these great points. All in this one video. You make a great point about the ad is so absurd. It's so absurd. But if you think corporate media is doing this because they're for LGBTQ rights and not that they're just using this as part of the red-blue fight, that's the point. So there's that also. On top of what happened
they bring up
in Colorado.
Why is Herschel Walker even being brought up on this story about the shooting
at all?
Isn't that disrespectful to the victims? No, I don't think. And I remember I saw coverage of this story. They said the motive of the shooter is still unknown, even though I think everyone could agree that it probably was an anti-gay hate attack. But why are we immediately going to the red-blue game when we don't even know what drove the shooter? We don't know what they just immediately start going to red-blue tribal bullshit. And when I see that immediately disgusting to me. But
because that's them telling you that we don't give a damn about this shit unless it's in the context of what is going to help us. And what's going to help
Breaking news from Colorado, a deadly mass shooting overnight at a nightclub.
Let's go to a more of a news. I wanted to start with that clip first. We'll go to this one just to get the basic information of what happened in the shooting now. But the point being made is that mainstream corporate media has already turned this into a joke. Like they never just let this tragedy. You can't just let a tragedy and let's talk about facts without you injecting blue-red nonsense. Like that was the point of playing that. But let's listen to this for the details of the shooting.
Breaking news from Colorado, a deadly mass shooting overnight at a nightclub in Colorado Springs.
A massive emergency response at the scene as the victims were rushed to area hospitals with gunshot wounds. The LGBTQ club where this happened, Club Q, calling this shooting a hate attack.
And there's word a suspect was apprehended at the scene. We get more now from Dan Beatty from our ABC affiliate KRDO in Colorado Springs. Good morning, Dan.
Eva, I'm standing about half a block away from Club Q, where there was a late Saturday night shooting that ended with 5 dead and at least 18 injured at this point in time. Colorado Springs police say those numbers are subject to change. Here's what we know so far. The suspect was captured by Colorado Springs police inside of Club Q when Colorado Springs police arrived on scene. We were told by Colorado Springs Fire that they actually had to double up in some of the ambulances with victims, taking them to multiple area hospitals. We did just receive about an hour ago a statement from the owners of Club Q. In the statement, it reads, quote, "Club Q is devastated by the senseless attack on our community. Our prayers and thoughts are with all the victims and their families and friends. We thank the quick reactions of heroic customers that subdued the gunman and ended this hate attack." Eva.
And that's Dan Beatty for us there. Thank you. And this mass shooting, just the latest incident of gun violence in the nation. Let's get more from ABC's Aaron Katersky. Good morning, Aaron.
Good morning to you, Eva. The shooting at Club Q in Colorado Springs instantly brought back memories of the Pulse nightclub mass shooting in Orlando back in 2016 that targeted the LGBTQ community. The club said it's an attack on our community, but so far police are not ready to say anything about a motive. They haven't said anything about the weapons used, who the suspect even is. But the shooting does come at a time of pervasive.
So they said even this report, this is a different report than I heard, but they all reporting that they don't know the motive, they don't know the political orientation of this person. Even though I will admit that it's kind of obvious, right? But if we don't know that, why are we immediately pivoting to showing a Herschel Walker ad? You see where the confusion starts with me? Can we at least wait until it comes out this motherfucker's MAGA? They didn't even wait. Immediately they went to playing Herschel Walker ads. Anyway, go ahead, CJ.
And because the media and their participation in propagandizing the public is literally nonstop. They must find, like, if a story is like, we're not just gonna tell facts here. We gotta add some propaganda. It's almost against their creed, Nick. They can't just give facts besides weather, and sometimes you can't even trust that shit. You can't even trust the weather, like if they're trying to propagandize the weather too. But to your point, yeah. And let's finish this clip. It's like 45 more seconds in the story.
Of gun violence in America. Since the mass shooting at the Pulse nightclub in 2016, the number of mass shootings in the country has nearly doubled in recent years. And hate crimes are also at an increase. 20% of hate crimes in 2020 target somebody because of sexual orientation. The number of hate crimes because of sexual orientation is also up. The FBI is now on scene to try to get to the bottom of what happened, guys.
Alarming trends. Still a lot to learn with this shooting. We'll stay on top of it throughout the morning. Aaron, thank you.
Hi, everyone. George.
Yeah, so that, it's no updated details as far as the amount of people killed or anything like that. It's still sitting at 5. And let me bring that back up so I can show you just a couple of just comments and maybe get your reaction to some of this. So let me take CNN. And I just got to make sure I'm looking at the right date here because it's amazing. What do you think, Nick, that when I type in Colorado shooting, it literally brings up multiple shootings from different years? Like, what do you think? What do you think?
You guys understand this.
What does that say about us?
I gotta be very careful when I say this because I don't want to minimize the trauma here. But I want you guys to know the media pick certain stories to run for a reason. And Zoya does a great job talking about this on Twitter all the time. There are mass shootings all the time, guys. Like, let me Google how many mass shootings. How many mass shootings in 2022? There have been 601 mass shootings. 20 involve 5 or more fatalities. And the point is, like, whenever these mass shooting happens, the mainstream narrative is that, oh my God, there's an uptick in mass shooting. But if you look at the overall trend, it's kind of consistent. Like it's consistently drawn. So you should ask yourself the question, why does the media focus on some mass shooting versus the other? Now, the simple fact of the matter is that we are an inherently violent country. Poverty breeds extremism. We are a broken society ran by constant contradictions. For example, they decry gun violence while sending massive amount of weapons to Nazis in Ukraine. You have liberals that decry the rise of anti-Asian hate while promoting blatant anti-China propaganda. So a society that is filled with these amount of contradictions, the most violent society of all time that was built on genocide and continuing endless war, it makes sense that we have a radicalized, insanely violent society. So we don't have much to add to this, but yeah, this kind of shit happens all the time, and not like the only thing we can really do about it is just improve our society to kind of prevent this stuff from happening. But it's gonna be a long road. Not much I really had to add to this.
Yeah, and especially it makes it even a longer road when we don't even want to identify capitalism as being like sort of the root or fueling problem in a lot of what's happening, the collapsing, sort of our society.
Oh yeah, that's 600 mass shootings this year. I just saw the question, just this year.
You thought that was a decade or something, bro?
Yeah,
I'm not, bro, but whoever it is, I'm sorry.
And once again, just to narrow it down even more, 20 of those involved 5 or more people dying. So this is
That's probably the ones we hear about the most, is when it's multiple people, or how is there any sort of
I think the metric that they use, that at least 4 people had to be injured, right? So either at least 4 injured or at least 4 dead. Let's pull it. I know this New York Times, they're gonna block me. Fuck, damn it.
Oh yeah.
They blocked me.
Just
Anyway,
think
so
about that. Go
I'm
ahead.
trying to
That's
see if I can find
crazy
an article for it. It's
information,
actually not
bro.
really hard to find. This is from NPR. I'll just do a quick dive into it just so you guys know. Here it is. 600 mass shootings so far in 2022. Let's see. I don't want to misspeak, so let me see if the article says it. But if I remember right, because I study crime all the time, it usually includes at least 4 people being shot. I don't think it includes them dying, but they gotta be at least shot. Let's see.
That is crazy.
You can go ahead. I'm just see if I can find.
That's damn near 2 people a day, or is that almost 3 people a day? 2 point something a day. Just, I mean, for people to really grasp what that means. Go ahead.
I'll just read it first. I'll just read this paragraph. Mass shootings happened in the U.S. With depressing regularity. The nation has seen at least 26 mass shootings since the start of November, with the latest on Saturday. At least 5 people were killed. Sunday is day 324 of the year, and the country has already experienced 601 mass shootings, 13 per week. I wish they would explain how they use that number, because I'll try to make sure I got the number. But I'm pretty sure I'll look at the chat. You guys can check. You guys can check me. But I'm pretty sure a mass shooting is at least 4 people injured. Article says 5. This guy said article says 5. So let's see. I may be close to that, right? But anyway, that's all I have to add. Anyway, go ahead, CJ.
Yeah, article says 5. Yeah, I see that too. All right. So I'm gonna quickly just show a couple of tweets just so people kind of get reaction. Any updated news? Looks like something new. This is from Ryan Grimm, or not new, like to add to the story that we're talking about, the Colorado story. And oops, let's just see what it says. This is Ryan Grimm. 4 minutes ago, the hero of Colorado Springs was cuffed, left in a car, and ignored for more than an hour by police, as he wondered if his family had lived through the shooting. They were wounded but survived. Mr. Fierro said he was covered in blood when the police arrived, and officers tackled him and put him in handcuffs. They were literally clowns. They don't know what the fuck's going on. He said he was held in a police car for more than an hour and screamed and pleaded to be let go so that he could see what happened to his family. Let me read more before I start commenting. Mr. Fierro, who owns a local brewery, said that on combat deployment in the Army, he had been shot at and had seen roadside bombs shred trucks. So he was also a veteran treated like this. Trucks in his platoon. His record shows that he was awarded the Bronze Star twice. The experience of combat still haunt him, he said, and the psychological and physical toll of the deployment were why he left the Army. So maybe that's why they kept him there. He has something bad to say about the military industrial complex, Nick. All right, so I don't think there's any other update. Let's just see here. Suspect in Colorado gay bar shooting facing 5 charges of murder and 5 hate crime counts. Court records show. So it looks like, Nick, they have established
One thing,
a motive. Go ahead.
The only thing I say before we wrap the segment up is I'm gonna continue to hammer this as abolitionist. When you watch the story, the person, he was apprehended by civilians,
right?
Not police. I just want
we can police ourselves. We can police ourselves. We can police ourselves. Go ahead.
I'm asking these questions. Did the police prevent this mass shooting? Did they show up and stopped it? No. Just like many other mass shootings, they were stopped by civilians in the area that physically restrained them, not the police. So that only thing anything else I got to add to the story. Like the police,
All right.
they're not gonna protect you for these mass shooters. They're not gonna protect you for any random act of violence. We just gotta improve society to the point where these violent incidents don't happen. I already see liberals all over Twitter talking about banning ARs. That's not the answer. They're not gonna prevent these violent people from doing violent acts. It's our toxic sick society, and that's why liberals always want to immediately point the finger at the AR. Because if you point your finger at the AR, then you don't come to that conclusion. This is because of our toxic, broken society. But go ahead, CJ.
Right. Anything to not confront capitalism, anything not to do that. That's what the bourgeoisie class or the petty bourgeoisie.
Oh yeah, and it's also
going to do.
While I'm thinking about takeaways from this, I said it on the show before, and I have to say it just for the segment. If any liberal that is trying to tell y'all to disarm, they're out of their fucking mind. If you're black in this country, you need to arm up. And when I said that, I also said, if you're a trans person and if you're in a gay community and you're over here talking about giving up guns, what the fuck are you talking about? You talking about giving up guns while you got crazy right-wing assholes who hate you, who want you dead? Do not listen to these liberals that try to tell us to disarm. Black people need to arm the fuck up. The LGBTQ community need to arm the fuck up. I see right now over Twitter, I was looking off screen, just looking for reactions, seeing ban AR everywhere. Ban, get rid of. If you're in the LGBT community, do not give up your goddamn guns. Why would you do that? If you're black, don't give up your goddamn guns. I am not advocating that until the police is disarmed. And I'll keep saying this for people who are new for the channel. I don't even like guns. I'm a martial artist. I have a bias against guns. I hate the fact that these guns can even the playing field for you motherfuckers. You lazy motherfuckers can compete against me, someone who trained Muay Thai for 13 years, because you can pull a trigger. So I am not happy about the existence of a gun, but I understand basic martial theory. We're not going to have the proletariat be disarmed in an era where the rise of hate violence, of state violence, while along the police is armed, along the military is armed. We keep our arms. If we have a magic way to get rid of arms, a lot of people will get pissed off. A lot of right wing will get pissed off. Some Marxists. If there was a magic way to snap guns out of existence, I'd be all for it. But as long as the police is armed, as long as our military is armed, as long as our enemies, the white supremacists, are armed, never disarm. Do not listen to these liberals. These liberals gonna get us killed with this bullshit. But anyway, go ahead, CJ.
Yeah. Killed or made to be slaves again because we don't have the adequate weaponry. But let me just read this. This is one of the first identified victims that I saw. This is Danella. She looks like a reporter, Danella Ibarra. ABC News report that one of the victims of the Colorado mass shooting, which is being investigated as a hate crime, is an Oklahoman, 28-year-old Daniel Davis Austin's mother, Sabrina Austin, told ABC her son was the youngest of the family and said he was amazing. And that's a picture of the victim that they're speaking of here. So just wanted to show a little respect and of at least one of the victims. I don't think all of them have been identified, but just show a little respect for the victims there. And we can wrap it here, Nick. Like I said, I'm gonna do this segment. I was watching it, getting ready, waiting for this Margaret Kimberley interview. So I was watching Majority Report live, and I just couldn't believe some of the stuff their guest was saying. I was like, man, this guy.
Yeah, I want to check this segment out before.
Yeah, I was like, I was like, man, this has to be weird to have her saying this. And like when they were talking about AOC, some of it, Emma's completely looking down.
Yeah, let's do that one
at
next.
The screen.
Let's do that segment.
Yeah,
next.
well, this is the only one. Yeah, this is the last one,
Okay,
unless you have something else. Yeah, this will be the last segment here. So this is gonna be fun. But before we do that, let's do another check. If you just joined us, because our viewership just went up by 100 people. So if you're just joining us late, you're about an hour and 45 minutes in. Join our Substack so we can get you notifications of when we go live. That way you can join us a little bit earlier. You missed the Margaret Kimberley part of this, but you can always rewind. Also like this video. We're at 482 people watching with 400 likes. Can we do 50 more likes? Let's get to 450 for this next segment. Go ahead.
Hold up. What? Hold up. So wait, this is gonna be a live reaction segment. So
something happened.
Right after we just covered the shooting. I got an update for you guys. And once again, this is a live update. I just saw this. So I just explained to you guys how it was a citizen who stopped the shooter. According to this, and I gotta be careful, but they quoted an article here, so I'm gonna trust their word for it. Hopefully they put a link to an article. A cop attacked the person who stopped the shooting. So let's read it. I'm reading through this right now. Let's see this. This account. I know that this person always spread left-wing politics. A veteran takes down the club shooter. Drag performer stomps the shooter down, but the cops show up and tackle, arrest, and detain the good guy who saved dozens of lives. That's why I was like, what? Oh, so let's read what happened. So if I get this correct, and this is correct here, not only did the cops did not prevent the mass shooting, they did what they have done multiple times, where they show up and they shoot or they attack the person who stopped.
Who's helping?
I did a segment about this a few months ago. I don't know if you remember this, CJ, of this guy who stopped a violent attack, a shooting, and then he was shot by the police officers.
Yeah.
This is unbelievable. This is unbelievable. I grabbed the gun out of his hand and just started hitting him. Oh, let me read this. As the fight continued, he yelled for the other club patrons to help. A man grabbed the rifle and moved it to safety. The drag dancer stomped on the gunman with her high heels the whole time. Mr. Fierro kept pummeling the shooter's head. When the police arrived, I'm skimming this, by the way. When police arrived a few minutes later, the gunman was no longer struggling, Mr. Fierro said, and he feared that he has killed him. The suspect in the shooting was taken into custody and remained hospitalized on the Monday afternoon. Mr. Fierro said he was covered in blood when the police arrived, and the officers tackled him and put him in handcuffs. He said he was held in the police car for more than an hour. What?
That's the same guy I was reading, but you got more of the story. You got more of the background of the story. We only had the little snippet.
Okay.
So they did this to this guy, and but this clearly show how Keystone the cops are, how Benny Hill like the cops are, Nick. This is what I tell my wife when I'm watching Reno 911. I'm like, that's more accurate of the cops than NYPD Blue. I'm like, Reno 911, the clown shit that happened on there, that's more accurate. And this is, and you see, and you
anyway, go ahead, CJ. I was not put that shit together. Like, man, that's exactly what we've been saying. Another example of that. But go ahead, CJ. Let's. So like the stream, get us to 4 whatever I said. I think I said 450. We're almost there already. We're just past 440. So thank you for that. So let's get to this story. This is and what do I call this story here? I think I have a banner already made. The New Left with Sam and Emma. So they had somebody on their live today, and I'll clip this their clip, and I'll put it on Twitter later today. But we're gonna hit pivotal points in the conversation. But let's listen. Oh, this is what I wanted to do. I wanted to get her name. So her name is Raina Lipsitz. It's spelled Lipsitz. Lipsitz. Okay, so Raina Lipsitz. I think that's how you say it. And it's called The Rise of the New Left. It's a book she wrote. And she's a PMC. Just understand. That's where the perspective is.
We are back. Sam Seder on the Majority Report. Joining us, writer Raina Lipsitz, author of The Rise of a New Left, How Young Radicals Are Shaping the Future of American Politics. Raina, welcome to the program.
Thanks so much for having me.
It's key in when we're going through this, Nick, is to understand that the words that they're using is not necessarily the same meaning we would give it. The rise of young radicals, for example, you're
Yeah.
thinking radicals like in the sense that we're thinking radicals. That's not at all what they're talking about. So just understand the context. That's going to happen throughout this conversation, that some of the words they use, we're just going to have to understand that there's a different definition that they're giving it. So, but here we go.
So let's start. And I certainly have been watching this sort of, broadly speaking, this massive change that appears to have happened, at least maybe a trajectory of massive change that has happened. When would you peg this as beginning, this rise of a new left?
I mean, it really depends on how you count. I usually say that it goes back to Occupy Wall Street 2011. And that's where my book kind of begins. A lot of the book is about what happened post 2015 as an outgrowth of the Bernie campaigns. But I think that you can really trace it to Occupy Wall Street and the dawning of a new kind of era of class consciousness that we hadn't seen in this country.
A new era of class consciousness. Have you seen a new era of class consciousness, Nick, from the likes of the people like Emma or Sam since the Bernie? Go ahead.
The only class consciousness that happened is the professional managerial class learned of the terms of the revolutionaries. Then they started to repeat that in order to trick revolutionaries into thinking they are on their side as they continue to propose reformist solutions that require revolutionary solutions. So that's
right.
That's the only thing that happened. The only thing is they just adopted our language, but they don't really agree with the strategies. They don't agree with the movement
because that's intentional.
Yeah,
it's intentional. Reformists want to gather revolutionaries to have them under their wing so they could squash the revolution. They just want to remain reformists. So they want to bring revolutionaries under the guidance, under the management of reformists, in my opinion. But let's continue. I'm going to actually fast forward now to the points that they make, because I just wanted them to establish what the conversation is about. So let me fast forward here, and there's a point that's going to be coming up in about 40 seconds into this next segment here.
Pivoting off the same sort of like premise that we're in a that our meritocracy is broken, as opposed to the so-called meritocracy that we have is sort of like leading to the same outcomes over and over again, maybe by design, I guess.
Right.
Talk about and I know that you started this book off by, or I should say, the reporting that went into this book by focusing on AOC. Talk about how you started there and then ended up branching out, and why.
Sure. I mean, when I was originally talking about writing the book, the first vision was something very specific to AOC. It was like not exactly a biography, but the AOC generation, that kind of thing. There were a few reasons I shifted away from that. One is that there were maybe 5 books coming out that had exactly the same, focus and title around AOC and specifically her as a personality. What I wanted to do with my book really was focus on people who are on the ground. So some of the bigger names are obviously in the book: AOC, Bernie, Elizabeth Warren, all of those people are there. But it was important to me to kind of broaden the picture and get away from, frankly, people who a lot has already been written about. I wanted to talk more about the on-the-ground organizers in different states and places who were inspired by these people. I think AOC was a starting point because it felt like such a natural way to pinpoint this big shift. She's somebody, and she said it herself throughout her campaign, she's somebody who never was supposed to win, right? That's her most famous campaign ad. I'm not the kind of girl who was ever going to be in Congress. And it was really shocking and amazing and frankly thrilling for a lot of people to see her do that, to see her take on an entrenched incumbent with the full support of the Democratic Party. And she toppled him. And that was the first time she ever ran for office. I think it's pretty hard not to be inspired by that on some level, unless you do not share her politics at all. But she's a pretty remarkable figure. And I had interviewed her twice for The Nation. So that's where I started the book.
And you say, your focus of your book, you wanted to focus more on people on the ground and like the left from the ground up. What were some of the disconnects that you might have observed between, say, politicians like Bernie Sanders and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, and maybe what their focus was from a rhetoric? Sorry. Did we lose her? Oh, okay. From a rhetorical perspective, versus what some organizers were focused on.
So what she's basically saying, what are the real people on the ground saying versus what compared to what these fake left people who she called Bernie Sanders and AOC? That's essentially what she's asking in this question. And let's listen to her answer.
So I think, the best example of that probably was Jonathan Smucker, who's been doing a lot of organizing in Lancaster County in Pennsylvania, which is where he's from. And he is somebody who taught me a lot about organizing in that context, where it's not, I think that people who are doing this work, particularly in certain communities that are more conservative, it's very disconnected from the Twitter discourse, right? They're not out there chanting slogans. They're not saying things like defund the police. In many ways, they're shying away from labeling themselves as socialists, even when they are socialists, right? So virtually everybody I talked to for the book actually is a socialist or had said at some point to me, I am a socialist, but I don't necessarily lead with that in my organizing. And that includes even some socialists in New York City who were.
I find this point curious, and Sam is going to chime in here, because Shama talks about this. In order to run as a Democrat, you got to have shit secret. Like, you can't even really say you're a socialist. This is the problem that Nina Turner had. Like, she couldn't even. I support Palestinians. She had to throw. Them under the bus. It's just running with the Democratic Party. Like it's no other way but to have to twist yourself in this sort of way. Let's listen some more. Actually, let me fast forward, or let me listen to Sam, and then I'm going to fast forward to the next point here.
Trying to organize in communities like the Bronx and certain parts of Brooklyn, where they just felt like the word was not serving them and was not something that they could really mean.
I have to say, if they are choosing not to use certain radical language or revolutionary language, what do you think they're going to do when they reach Washington, D.C.? Like, if they're even afraid to use language, the right language, then if they're afraid to use socialist, do you think they're going to push for socialist policies if they don't even want to be labeled that? Now let's go to this next point in the conversation. It gets better. I'm building to a climax here, so let's listen.
Everybody who votes in Buffalo is on Twitter and got really into AOC or something like that. It was like, very much had to do with investment. Working Families Party invested in talking to people in communities in Buffalo that had been completely overlooked for years.
I want to ask you like what constitutes the broad left, but I want to just stop for a moment too on that what you found with the organizers finding that the word socialist wasn't working for them, and that it was not like the idea, because Bernie Sanders started off his campaign in 2020 differently than he did in 2016. I mean, obviously he was I think more prepared to win in some ways, at least I think from his perspective in 2020 than he was in 2016 in terms of what his agenda was for running. But he started off his campaign by trying to explain or, present the idea of democratic socialism and socialism to some extent in his almost his opening speech of his campaign, maybe the second one. That dynamic where the socialists that you spoke to felt like it wasn't necessary to sell socialism as an ideology, but rather as a set of issues, or
So instead of selling socialism as an ideology, you're selling socialism as a set of issues. And what do we say here, Nick? What makes you a leftist? They're going to talk about this too, and it's so funny. They say, "What constitute what? How did you decide what makes a person a leftist?" And she literally names the shit that I tell you all the time: $15 minimum wage, healthcare. These just very like satellite sort of things. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. You I want to see what you said, but that's
okay. Perfect. Let's listen to the remain. Let me back it up just a little bit and finish what he says, and then let her go into her answer.
The idea, because Bernie Sanders started off his campaign in 2020 differently than he did in 2016. I mean, obviously he was, I think, more prepared to win in some ways, at least I think from his perspective in 2020 than he was in 2016 in terms of what his agenda was for running. But he started off his campaign by trying to explain or, present the idea of democratic socialism and socialism to some extent in his almost his opening speech of his campaign, maybe the second one. That dynamic where the socialists that you spoke to felt like it wasn't necessary to sell socialism as an ideology, but rather as a set of issues, or specific to the place and the time. Talk about that a little bit more. I'm curious about that dynamic.
Sure. I mean, I think that there's two things I would say about that. One is that sometimes there's a difference between making a sort of tactical or strategic choice in a particular race to not sort of front and center socialism as such, or to avoid the word or something like that. To me, that doesn't mean that you're less committed to the ideology. For some people, they're not at all.
I just have to comment on this. This is the watering down that the PMC class does. Listen to what she said. She said, because you are finding a reason to not be proud about you being a socialist and just labeling and accepting you're a socialist and proudly saying that to me doesn't mean you're not that. But think about what that means for the professional managerial class. They're signaling like, oh, I'm not, like what they said about war. Just because I voted for war, that I can still be anti-war and still vote for war. It's this lane that the professional managerial class always loves to create a hodge. They don't never want to go with what they already know historically. To organize, you need to go through the working class. No, we want to create this new thing, and it happened. Go ahead, Nick.
Yeah, that's exactly it, and that's why I said many times before. A lot of people think that Bernie Sanders shifted this country to the left and created a lot of socialists. What he did was shift what it means to be a socialist to the right. So now you got a lot of hipster liberals who like, oh, I supported Bernie Sanders. I'm a socialist. Meanwhile, they were funding Nazis in Ukraine. We all know that any real socialist wouldn't join the capitalist imperial empire that we meant to overthrow.
Do you think he's part of the scam of sort of recuperating what it means to be socialist? Because think about what he said. Bernie made a tactical decision to remove ideology from the term democratic socialist and just have it a certain set of like subjects or topics be identified. Now that allows you, if you take ideology out, guess what you took out about war? Guess what you took out about imperialism? If you take ideology out of it.
Yeah, and that was the criticism that Michael Prenti had of Bernie Sanders. Like Bernie Sanders was whitewashing what it is we are asking as socialists. So he pretty much promoted the idea that, oh, I'm a socialist. I believe that government should do stuff. Socialism is not when government does stuff. Government does stuff regardless. It just what is the mandate they are giving. How are they using their authority? Under a capitalist government, they use their authority to enrich the capitalist class by giving bailouts, by funding the police force that I meant to protect them. Under the dictatorship of the proletariat, the mandate and authority given by the people is given. It comes from the people. So Michael Parenti's criticism of Bernie was Bernie keeps saying this shit like tax the rich, tax the rich. Socialism is not when the government does stuff and collect more taxes. What we should have been advocating for is the reallocation of funds, of seizing the means of production.
Right.
That's not from me. That comes from Michael Parenti. He did not like the tax the rich slogan. There was you guys can look it up. Look up. You can literally type in Michael Parenti tax the rich. He gave a little mini speech. He said, as socialists, we should not be advocating for tax the rich. We should be advocating for seizing the means of production. Those are two different things. And that's why I say Bernie didn't shift people to socialists. He shifted that definition to the right. Now there are people who don't give a fuck about seizing the means of production and overthrowing the imperial capitalist system. Now because I want the government to do more stuff, so I'm a socialist. You guys see what happened? Go ahead, CJ.
Right, but that's what the recuperation of the term socialist or socialism is, that you take ideology out and make it. That is literally what recuperation is. That's literally the definition. But let's continue. Here's another point that is made. There's a lot here, but here's another point that is made. 4420. Let me go to that one. I'll start it maybe 20 seconds before the spot I want. Here we go.
Book, and I think there's a paragraph where I just sort of tried to make it very explicit, but it's just what I mean by that is people who are to the left of the Democratic.
My bad. I forgot she was going to say that in the last one we were just listening to. So let me let her say that, and then it'll go right into the next one, because she defines what is a leftist to her. So I forgot she was going to
time. Talk about that a little bit more. I'm curious about that dynamic.
Sure. I mean, I think that there's two things I would say about that. One is that sometimes there's a difference between making a sort of tactical or strategic choice in a particular race to not sort of front and center socialism as such, or to avoid the word or something like that. To me, that doesn't mean that you're less committed to the ideology. For some people, they're not at all committed to the ideology, and they don't care about the word, and they don't feel, Jessica Cisneros, who ran in South Texas, she's a Justice Democrat-backed candidate. And I was talking to someone about her campaign, and he said she really didn't want to use that word because she's not a socialist. It doesn't mean anything to her. She didn't think it would mean anything to most people in her community. In New York City, I think the issue was more around people have certain associations with the word, and people were DSA candidates in New York City were sort of trying to do two things at once. They were trying to win particular races in particular communities and also make a connection for people between.
But let me add this critique before she gets to the part that I'm waiting for. This is the problem with people saying, I want to run, instead of a candidate coming out of the community of activism. It's because you have to craft yourself to meet the constituency instead of coming naturally, organically out of a movement. You get what I'm saying? That you don't have to twist and turn, but you just come in and say, oh, I want to run because of whatever reason. You're having to craft yourself in order for people in the community to like you. Now, think about if you came up in that community. Think about if you were a mutual aid party and you came up in that community. Would you have to go through the community convincing people you're this or that, or would they already kind of know who you are? And let me let it continue, Nick, to the part.
Socialism as an ideology and a practice, frankly, more than an identity, and the issues and the improvements in quality of life that it could yield. And I think that goes back to, a much earlier era in our country in the 10s, 20s, and 30s, when there were socialists in office all over the country, and the phrase sewer socialism sort of came out of that. And that's the idea that you can connect municipal services and improvements quality of life in a city to socialism, right? To public ownership of public goods, and getting people, making that link in people's minds between what does it mean when I say I'm a socialist and what can that do for you? What can that do for us? So, people approach it really differently, and it depends on the individual and the particular election. But I think people were doing that in different ways in different parts of the country.
So what does constitute, as you write about the new left, like what is the left part of that new left? Like what constitutes the left?
The way that I use it in my book, and I think there's a paragraph where I just sort of tried to make it very explicit, but it's just, what I mean by that is people who are to the left of the Democratic Party and support policies that are not part of the official platform of the Democratic Party. So Medicare for all, the Green New Deal, immigrants' rights, abortion rights, but abortion rights in a sort of
here is where the PMC, because abortion rights, in order for her to include that, but that is part of the Democratic thing. So she has to carve out this extra thing to make PMCs feel like they're different. And that's what she does here.
So I just want to point this out.
Framework that
I just want to point this out, guys. And I am someone who's strongly strongly pro-choice. Lula is not. Lula ran on a pro-life agenda. There are many socialists and communists in the global South who are pro-life. That does not have anything to do with left versus right. Like that had nothing to do with whether you're socialist or not. That's culture war shit, right? That's where you stand on social issues. And so so based on their definition, if you're a member of the professional managerial class and you support Medicare for all, and you support abortion, you're to the left as communists in Brazil. That doesn't add up, right? But anyway, go ahead, CJ.
No, that's a great point, but it also, Nick, it points out to the fact how the left has no connection to, no understanding of even left policies. They only go, you believe in this, this, and this, you're left. Do you see how it's so devoid of an understanding of ideology? This is why they get war so wrong, because you're not going to get war right as a leftist without ideology. That's something that you could, it's nuanced. That's why you see these petty bourgeoisie have all this quote unquote nuanced stances, because it's not from a point of understanding ideology. And you talk about this all the time. Like they never talk ideology because their leftism isn't about an ideology. It's about specific things that they want to get. And that's why I say you're not a leftist if that Medicare for all, you know how many right wingers in other countries are for healthcare for everybody else? Like that is what the left is in the United States. Go ahead, Nick.
Literally, I broke down a poll like last year that showed like 25% of Republicans are for Medicare for all. 56% are for a public option. So this thing that you guys keep doing, saying, if you're for Medicare for all, that makes you a lefty, we gotta stop that. Because as you admit, that's a great point. A lot of Republicans support it as well. You wouldn't call them leftists because some of their takes on social issues, and that's the dynamic that is global. That's the global dynamic. There are socialists, there are leftists, there are communists around the world that is socially conservative. So we need to have a more concise, we need to have a more serious definition of what this stuff means. It seems like the Democratic Socialists and Justice Democrats, they take the position that the Democratic Party held, and they're like, if you're just a little bit to the left of that, you're a leftist. No. Where you stand on the use of state power, the use of authority, and who should seize the means of production. These are the crucial core tenets of what it means to be on the left versus what it means to be on the right. But anyway, go ahead, CJ.
It's such a weak threshold, because if you don't start with the understanding that the Democrats are a center-right party. So if you're starting from that, you understand the center is the left. You see how the definition that she's making left is so weak, like it's so weak, is that so many people will qualify for being on the left that are simply not, that have no connection to ideology. Anyway, I made the point already. Let's listen to more further explain what she was saying. What was I? Yeah.
The new left. Like, what is the left part of that new left? Like, what constitutes that the left?
The way that I use it in my book, and I think there's a paragraph where I just sort of tried to make it very explicit, but it's just, what I mean by that is people who are to the left of the Democratic Party and support policies that are not part of the official platform of the Democratic Party. So Medicare for all, the Green New Deal, immigrants' rights, abortion rights, but abortion rights in a sort of framework that is distinct from the way the Democratic Party supports abortion rights, which is mostly to say the word abortion or say reproductive freedom and then not really protect it in any meaningful way. I mean, we lost Roe, so clearly they failed to protect it. I think that, you know, it's not what everybody. And I think one thing I also talk about in the book is that the left is a kind of an amorphous, broad term that means different things to different people. I was sort of amused when I've been talking about this book and going around the country, how many people think that I mean just Democrats, that I mean actually Democratic voters or members of the Democratic Party, and that is the left. And that's sort of part of the problem and part of what I'm trying to get at in the book, that in fact there's a movement that's pretty separate and distinct from that.
Go ahead.
Well, how does it manifest its distinction? I mean, like within.
All right, I'll go to the last point that I have written down here, and then we can close out unless you have another story. But I think this might be the last story here. Yeah. So here, let's go to this last point that I have marked here.
So there are different parts of the left. I just really mean it to be anyone who, again, is to the left of the official sort of mainstream Democratic Party and its positions, policy positions.
How much of, like, where does the perspective on electoralism fit in that, right? I mean, because like AOC is, I mean, she's a Democratic congressperson.
Right.
You know, and I think her positions are to the left of where the center of the Democratic Party is. But
based on what?
In terms of like
based on what? Her voting record?
Tweets.
Based on what? Her tweets? That's
vibes.
it? All you gotta do is just tweet good shit. It's just vibes. But sorry, I don't want to add that thought. Just based on what, when he says this, when people keep saying AOC is to the left of the Democratic Party, as someone who used to believe that, I am asking you guys for the evidence, because when I used to like AOC when she was running and the very beginning, like the first few weeks, she was presenting herself as a leftist. So then ever since then, I was watching what she has been doing, and she hasn't done one fucking thing to the left. Do you guys know AOC's first act was to give a pay raise to people in Congress? Then after that, she voted to expand NATO. After that, I was like, all right, I'm done. There's no evidence to that, Sam. You guys are saying that because you guys want that to be true. You guys want it to be true that AOC is this left renegade flank of the Democratic Party. That is not true. In the same way that when people say the squad supports defunded police, you hear this all the time. The squad supports defunded police. Based on what? Based on them funding the Capitol Police Corps? Based on them voting for the U.S. Domestic Terrorism Act that, thank God, the Senate Republicans struck down? You guys know the only reason we don't have a new crime bill and a new Patriot Act right now is because of Senate Republicans, not because of AOC. They were trying to pass this U.S. domestic, I covered this months ago. It became irrelevant because, thank God, Senate Republicans struck it down. They were using January 6th as a way that would drastically expand surveillance powers to the police. They already expanded the surveillance power of the police and the Capitol Police. They were about to announce this U.S. domestic terrorism bill that would expand it nationwide, which essentially would have created a new Patriot Act, but 100% domestic. The squad, every single one of them, every single Democrat voted for that. So when you guys say they are for defunding police, They're to the left of the Democratic Party based on what? That's the only question. That's the only question you gotta ask these people. And watch them make a fool of themselves because they're gonna say, "Well, she tweaked this stuff." They're gonna have
because they're not gonna have anything to refer to. What are they gonna have to refer to, Nick? Literally. What are they gonna say? They're gonna say, "Oh, Amazon, she did this." That some sort of activism they may bring up, maybe.
Yeah.
But let's listen to the last 2 minutes here and let's close this out. I think it's 2 minutes left, and then we'll close it.
Well, who knows with the Supreme Court? But how does that left distinct from the Democratic Party work and maybe manifest itself, and how much of that is it just a function of from your perspective, how does it manifest itself?
I think it means, again, I mean, it really does just mean different things to different people. And I think that it's not as if you can't be part of the left if you vote Democratic. I talked to many, many people who still vote.
You like that? You like how she's giving them an out right in their faces? Like, because he's asking, you got to listen to the whole conversation to get the context, but he's asking, how does that distinction between what we are saying, the left, those people that are left in the United States and the Democratic Party, what is the distinction? And she's saying, well, you can still vote for the Democratic Party and be left. This definition of what's left is so ridiculous. But let's continue with the
and now
explanation of it. Yeah.
Compare their definition to Norman Finkelstein definition that we played. Remember what we played yesterday?
Yeah.
We said what it means to be on the left. He said, when you're on the left, your primary objective is to convey to the workers that the ruling class, he did say that Republicans, he said the ruling class, meaning both Republicans and Democrats, your primary objective is to point out to your supporters that their interests are not yours. AOC does the exact opposite, guys. Instead of doing what we do on our channel, Norman Finkelstein said, you got to point out their interest is not ours. What have we done? During the January 6th trials, I explained to the dismay of the boutique level. This is the real reason why they hate RBN. Because while they were doing January 6th derangement syndrome, you had Jordan Sheridan live streaming the damn events and shit, the trials.
Yeah.
We were telling you guys that them pushing January 6th is not in our interest. Remember, CJ, who else was doing? We explained that it was using January 6th to expand the national security state. And that is what they did. That is what leftists do. What did AOC do? AOC was on Twitter 24/7 trying to gaslight his supporters that January 6th is in their interest. So according to the definition set by Norman Finkelstein, AOC does the exact opposite of what you're supposed to do as a leftist. So as a leftist, AOC, you're supposed to explain how the NATO proxy war and funding NATO and expanding NATO, which AOC voted to do, she voted to expand NATO twice.
Twice, yeah.
Your job is to explain to your constituents why voting to expand NATO and funding Nazis in Ukraine is not in our best interest. But what she doing the opposite way? She ignores the issue, and then when she addresses the issue, she tried to gaslight us into believing that the what is in the best interest of the ruling class is the best interest for us. Voting for Nancy Pelosi instead of forcing the vote. That's in our best interest, right? That this shit they literally try to convince us. Right? Don't march for America for all. Come on, man. They're not in your best interest. You see? But anyway, go ahead, CJ. And I saw this now. I'll wait till I just show announce it. It's pretty crazy.
The Supreme Court. But how does that left distinct from the Democratic Party work and maybe manifest itself? And how much of that is,
how does the left distinct from the party work?
It's just a function of, from your perspective, how does it manifest itself?
I think it means, again, I mean, it really does just mean different things to different people. And I think that it's not as if you can't be part of the left if you vote Democratic. I talked to many, many people who still vote for Democratic.
Now, I must say this because I just thought of it. Now, all along, she's been saying, it means different things to many people. But then why is she firmly making a stance that you can be of the left and still vote for the Democratic Party? Didn't you just say it means different things to many people, but you're trying to establish that point because all of you vote for them?
From your perspective, how does it manifest itself?
I think it means, again, I mean, it really does just mean different things to different people. And I think that it's not as if you can't be part of the left if you vote Democratic. I talked to many people who still vote for Democrats, but they're very critical of the party as an institution. I think that, you know, part of the issue is that the word progressive has become really a kind of mushy umbrella term, and that's on purpose in a lot of ways, because people who are not really part of the left want to position themselves. You know, Andrew Cuomo used to describe himself.
It's so funny, Nick, and I can stop it here. Not stop it, but because it's so funny how the same things we say about them, they say about liberals, like how they say people. They're saying Hakeem Jeffries is not a progressive, even though he claims to be a progressive. So, and they say, oh, he's just misusing the word, and we do the same thing about them. Like, you call yourself left. The threshold that is required in the United States politics that gives you the right to call yourself left is just a joke. What say this super chat? What would the majority report do without reporting on tweets? What a useless group of individuals. Your tweets have to be lefty, but your actions not.
Yeah,
that is a great point.
Class. That is a great managerial class summed up in a nutshell. As long as you're tweeting whatever the Democratic Party approves you to tweet, as long as you sound like you're elected, all that matters. You don't actually have to promote that. Your voting record could be trash.
I think that's what the point is here. So any leftists that are not critical of the party and still vote Democratic have a valid opinion by default. It doesn't matter if they disagree. If they vote Dem, they are responsible for this bullshit.
Yeah, I never understood that disconnect. Like,
yeah.
I even when I wasn't as far left as I am, guys, I voted Joe Stein in 2016. I'm like, I don't understand. The last time I voted Democrat was 2012. How can you guys list all the horrific things that Democrats do? Explain how giving Democrats more power won't lead to the embarrassment of the working class people, but you then still vote Democrat because you think something's gonna change. I don't fundamentally don't understand that. I voted
There's
for
so
Obama
many contradictions.
I voted for Obama.
Do you notice all the Do you notice all the contradictions with the people that still want us to do this, Nick? We point them out all the time. There's so many contradictions in this strategy of taking over this party. There's so many contradictions. Now I didn't play the actual part where he said, she describes AOC and how she found many people that thought AOC was not left, and how she explained. I couldn't find it at last minute because I watched the whole thing, and I went back to find them. I couldn't find that last minute, but she goes on to explain why those people say she's not left, and you can see Emma just looking down, like, man, she wanted to say they had no reply to when she said that.
Come on, CJ. I spent my whole life trying to take over the Democratic Party. I had a lifetime I spent trying to reform this Democratic Party. So don't waste your life trying to reform a third party. Don't make the same mistake I did. That's what these motherfuckers literally, they will say that straight up with a serious face. I spent all my life trying to reform the Democratic Party. So don't do the same thing with a third party.
That's essentially what David Sirota is saying, and I guess we can use it as a closeout video, but I do want to play it now, and that's that video you said, the Finkelstein video. I do want to play it. We can use it as a closeout video as a rebuttal to this. To close. But Nick, tell us what's up with you before you head out and before I play this this closeout video. When can people see you again? What's going on with you, Nick?
I'm working on a big guest for Saturday. Don't want to say it yet. Still working on it. Oh yeah, apparently Savvy about interviewed Andrew Yang.
Dude. Oh yeah, that's today. That's 7.
I didn't know that. I literally just Savvy like, yo, you want to interview Andrew Yang? She said, yeah. So I'm gonna watch that tonight. Other than that, I don't have any announcement. I got a few guest slots I'm working on. We took a break from guest slots after the the second General Strike Summit like I usually do. So you saw Margaret Kimberley today. You guys saw Kit last Saturday. That Saturday I'm gonna try and have like a guest time slot. So I'm gonna try to work on getting a guest every Saturday. That's my short-term plan. So I got a few guests I'm working on. I don't want to announce it yet because we're still working on times. But a lot of great guests. Like if you guys enjoyed Margaret Kimberley today, if you guys enjoy Kit from Harlan's meeting on Saturday, we were just getting started because I'm working on a few though. So stay tuned. But I'll see you guys. I think I should be back tomorrow on RBN Live. But I'll see you guys tomorrow.
Oh yeah, RBN Live should be kind of lit. There's some news breaking, so when you get off, you'll see what's on. You'll see what's on Twitter.
Yeah, I'll see you guys tomorrow.
I'm sure we'll have. All right, so I'm gonna close out the stream. This is a great rebuttal video. Nick made reference to it in the last segment with Emma and Sam about how what he defines as left. Now contrast what he's gonna say in this upcoming video with the last segment. Contrast the threshold of what makes a leftist versus what he's saying blew up what they call the progressive left. So let's listen. Great video. If you're brand new, join our Substack on your way out so that you get notifications. I will be uploading some clips later on tonight, probably in a couple of hours. So look for those, but join our Substack so you don't miss anything. Like the video on your way out and subscribe on your way out. This is the Nick and CJ show. I am CJ signing off, and this is the closeout video.
The day the squad and Bernie voted for war credits for the Ukraine, that whole enterprise called, the progressive, turned into a rotting corpse. The whole job of leftists, as they understood it back then, is to constantly point out the conflict of interest, what they call contradictions, but we can leave that aside, the conflict of interest between the ruling elite, the capitalist class, and yourself, to constantly point out their interests are not your interests. Their interests are not your interests. Don't be fooled. And for them, the hallmark of what you call class consciousness, the hallmark of class consciousness was seeing that fundamental conflict and cleavage between you, your class, your interests, and the ruling class. Now, let me be clear. That's exactly what Bernie did. He knew, he internalized, it was in his bone and in his blood, that tradition. And that's why day in and day out and day in and day out, in both of his campaigns, he kept talking about there are a bunch of crooks. There are a bunch of crooks. Big Pharma, bunch of crooks. And he did exactly what an old-time socialist would have done. Class consciousness. Their interests are not your interests. But then what happened? When it came to the foreign policy, all of a sudden, the bunch of crooks metamorphosed into a band of angels. You're telling me the same people who are cheating you day in and day out, stealing your wealth, stealing your labor, the same people are suddenly heartbroken by what's happening to the Ukrainian people? Are you telling me that? They're suddenly so concerned about the Ukrainian people?
which I think is cause for celebration. So either way, Fetterman's not out. If you live in Pennsylvania, vote for Fetterman.
He's decided to imply that we should unify behind the Democratic Party before they've done anything. They've done nothing to show to us that they are willing to embrace progressive reforms. We see a couple of articles in Politico and The Hill about how, Dems are embracing Bernie now. That sounds great. Let's see it. I want to actually see some action. I don't want to hear about how they're embracing Bernie Sanders. They tried out Keith Ellison. They drag Bernie Sanders along and they say, hey, we're like this guy. Meanwhile, they haven't changed a single thing. So I don't get what the goal of Bernie Sanders' unity tour is. It seems like a complete contradiction. I'm not unifying behind the Democratic Party until I see that they change. And they've, if anything, they've given us, the cold shoulder and have communicated to us that they're not going to change a single thing. So there's going to be no unity. And if anything, I think that it's going to kind of damage the reputation of Bernie Sanders, by aligning with someone as egregious as Tom Perez. They've shown time and again they want nothing to do with Bernie. So now it's time to show them some tough love. Tell them to fuck off if they're not going to implement Bernie Sanders reforms. We have no time for incrementalism. I'm not going to buck up. I'm not going to accept crumbs. Like that opportunity where they had the supermajority, you're absolutely right. They could have done something that would have made them exponentially popular for decades. They could have fought for single payer. They could have given us, substantial reform, and they didn't. So if we give Democrats a supermajority, we know that we get Republican-light policies. That's it. It really feels like you can't just look at someone's party label and ascertain certain tidbits of information about it like we used to. You just can't do that.